Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Sorry again for the lateness. I just know that tonight is going to be a longer meeting, and I know we all love longer meetings. And so we also have Ken Pittman coming in at about 6-ish, but he's gonna start speaking after we finish the debate, and I want to respect his time as well. So can I get a call to order from anybody? Thank you, Senator King. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Does anybody want to take notes? President Pro Tem, you want to take notes? Nick? Does anybody else want to take notes? Because I can't take notes while I'm talking. Yeah, you can take notes on mine. Sorry, technical difficulties. Okay. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for getting pizza. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Senator King. Can I get a second? Thank you. Starting with the agenda, we are welcoming the 3 candidates for the student body presidential election that will be taking place on February 11th. Please make sure you and your constituents go vote. And the way this debate is going to go is Katie has a number of questions for these candidates, and it will go in a random order. And I'm going to hand it over to Katie.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. We're going to keep this nice and snappy. Thank you all candidates for joining us today. I'm going to talk very briefly about the format of this debate. So normally we flip a coin, but there's 3 of y'all. So I just spun a wheel earlier to randomly pick, and Adolfo is going to go first tonight. So good job. You won the coin flip, my computer's coin flip. And then we will go in this order, just kind of this way. So the way that this will work is each candidate is going to have 90 seconds to do their opening statements. Then we have provided the candidates with 3 basically pre-prepared questions. And I pulled those straight out of the form that I shared with y'all at the last meeting for the candidates. And then we are going to do, after each of those candidates, we'll have 90 seconds to answer those questions, rotating who goes first. After we've gone through those 3 questions, we are going to we're going to try to do 3 questions from the audience. We were really trying to land this under 30 minutes. So I think we're probably going to have time for about 3 questions. And I created another QR code for another round of questions, and I will just read these straight out, and these will be the audience questions. So these will be the questions that the candidates have not seen before. And then we will do a final round of closing statements. Are there any questions from the candidates about the format? Cool. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started first with opening statements, and just make sure you also introduce yourself during that as well. I think you have to hold that to get that to work. So let me just pull up my timer. 1 second. All right, go ahead.
Can you hear me, everyone? Good. Okay, cool. Perfect. Thank you. Hello, my name is Adolfo, and I'm really honored to be here to be running as an outsider from student government for student body president. I think that there is a lot to work on healing the relationship between the executive branch and the graduate student government as a whole. Something that I would like to say, well, I'm from Mexico, so I came to the US when I was 16 years old, and I've built my life around Carolina, and I really appreciate the community being able to build here. But I couldn't stop but noticing the fact that graduate students have always been approached in a checkmark status. It's always been about what do we have to do, not what should we be doing for them. And I believe that that has to change. The student body president's role is to represent the entire student body, not just the undergraduate part of it. And it's not just about talking to the other side, but how can we build stronger connections and focus on actually connecting with graduate students? I think that's a fundamental part. I had senators in this room helping write my policy. I approach people who care about these issues because I want to fix a relationship that continues to damage how graduate students are represented. I think graduate students are a fundamental part of university research, of university operations, and I want to give that representation to this group inside the executive branch. I'll keep talking later on about the specific policies and partnerships that we've been able to build, but I do believe that I offer a different path for the future of our student government. And I come here with my heart to tell you, I want to heal the relationship and actually work to construct a partnership between
Great.
both sides.
Thank you. All right, next will be Kaylee.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here today, and thank you for giving up some of your time just to listen to us speak. I really appreciate it. So I'm Kaylee Wadsworth. I'm a junior here, majoring in health policy and management in Gillings. And I have been working behind the scenes in student government since the day I stepped foot on campus within various committees, then also the treasurer, then chief of cabinet. So today you'll hear a lot of policies and objectives that I work with on a daily basis for the past year, helping to advance all students, all 30,000 undergrads and graduate students to help better shape Carolina. But I'm coming to the forefront after working behind the scenes because I see there's issues that have not taken a student-centered approach to being solved. And I'm tired of seeing the same cycle of negligence and non-transparency happen, which is why I'm running. Carolina, when I first applied, I did not see myself here. And it really disheartens me as a student in Gillings, a professional school here. I am working with graduate and professional students on a daily basis. I'm in classes with PhDs and master's students every single day, and I hear their complaints, I hear their issues, I hear their struggles, and it would be naive of me to say that I understand what you all go through, but I want to understand and involve you all in the process. Thank you for letting me be here today. Look forward to talking more.
We're good? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to be able to talk to you about my policy. My name is Jacob Williams, and I am running on a platform of a Carolina we believe in. And I really want to emphasize the point graduate students are students on this campus, and that needs to be known. For the longest time, graduate students have been left out of conversation, left out of Board of Trustee remarks, left out of important conversations that need to be heard and need to be understood. In my opinion, there is no way that an undergraduate is able to fully understand what it's like to be a graduate student on this campus, and that shouldn't be how it is. Graduates have a specific way of how they live and how they operate on this campus, and that needs to be understood. Specifically, I really want to highlight my experience. So I currently serve as the secretary in student government. With that, I've been able to meet with Katie, with Elaine, who actually helped me write my policy in my platform. And so there's a lot of these policies that I will mention to you today came from your constituents, my constituents. You are my constituents. And if elected, again, knowing that in this role you are elected and you are chosen to serve as the representative of the entire student body, not one half, not 1/3. You're chosen to represent the entire student body. And I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to talking to each of you about my policy.
Great, thank you all. I realize I'm not giving you a time warning, and that was my mistake. I just didn't do it for all of you to make it even. So I'll do a 2 when you have 20 seconds and a 1 when you have 10 seconds. So I apologize for that. Okay, we're going to start with the first question. This question is, in past years, the student body president has said that they would advocate for grad representation on the Board of Trustees. Would you advocate for this, and how? Additionally, would you support a rotating model where undergrad and grad student presidents share the seat on the Board of Trustees? We'll start with you first, Kaylee.
Thank you for this question. So yes, I will be advocating for grad student representation on the Board of Trustees because it's needed. I do not understand your experience. We all have different lived experiences here on this campus, and it's important that we both have a seat at the table. But I understand this has been proposed in many years to come, and still there's no seat for graduate students. So my first agenda is making sure graduate students have guaranteed speaking time on the Board of Trustees. That's the first step. That's the actual step that I know we can do on day 1. Second off, in my policy, you'll see that I propose to make an amendment to the bylaw to include a seat for graduate students to represent. And yes, as a first step, having a rotating seat would be amazing, but then again, it's really important to have two strong voices rather than one when representing the students' best interest. And it's not to anybody's demise that we know that UNC has a history of discriminating against graduate students. I mean, you guys are at a
Oh, you don't want to listen?
if that's tried because there's more undergraduates here. So I think it's extremely important that we work together in collective action to make change on this university.
Thank you. Okay, Jacob, you're next.
Yeah, this is a super important issue, and I really want to make sure that we know that there's a lack of representation for 10,000 students on this campus, over 10,000 students, and that is you all, that is graduate students. So in terms of what I will advocate for, I will advocate for there to be an ex officio member on the Board of Trustees that represents graduate students. I think that is extremely important, and that is something that is already in conversation. We've had many meetings with the provost. I've had meetings with Katie to discuss this. I've had a lot of meetings to understand how are we going to get this process done. In terms of the rotating model that you mentioned, if it comes to that, then yes, I would support. However, I really want to emphasize the importance of the role of student body president. When you are running for this role, you are running knowing in your mind that you are supposed to represent the undergraduates and the graduate students. That means in your role, you should be out asking and hearing from graduate students. That is important, not just undergraduate students, not just one constituency. It's important to hear from each constituent to ensure that when you are talking to the Board of Trustees and when you are bringing up points, you know exactly who to represent and what concerns to bring to the table. That is what I really want to stand for, and that is what I'm planning to do. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Last one.
Thank you. Something I would like to recall is last year when this forum passed some resolutions that were not like with the administration. The Board of Trustees call you all children. It told you to grow up, and it was a very disrespectful way that showed the Board of Trustees actively being dismissive against graduate students, which needs to change. We need to advocate for real representation, understanding that yes, there are a lot of struggles within the graduate student body, but they need to be heard. Some of them are related to everyday situations that do not allow graduate students to continue living a fair life in our communities. Our first policy is to focus on permanent speaking time within the Board of Trustees. I believe that we need to have feet on the ground and understand that the first step is to reach that part. You know, we allow guests, that sometimes graduate students are allowed to talk in there, sometimes are not, but we need to build consistency. And in terms of the rotating seat, I believe that a big thing that's lacking within the relationship with the administration is consistency. The consistency of the executive branch working with the administration is already not good as it is. So something that I would like to do is to focus, on building a consistent relationship with them. So having that one seat being permanent, but also advocating for how can we make sure that the people who were told to grow up can have a seat at the table. The people who are putting real weight on the administration can have a seat at the table. So thank you.
All right, we're now going to move on to our second question, and Jacob, you'll start this one off. Please describe a specific initiative in your platform that most directly impacts graduate and professional students. Please be specific in the steps you will take to achieve this initiative and how you plan to engage graduate students in the process.
Yeah, definitely. As my role as secretary, I've been able to, again, talk to a lot of graduate students on campus. And the one major thing that I've heard is stipends. We need an increase in stipends. And that is something I think everyone in this room can agree with. There is no reason why the minimum stipend should be $20,000 when it costs $11,000 at least to live at Beatty Hill Apartments. That's ridiculous and it's embarrassing, especially looking 7 miles down the road. That's Duke pays their graduate students $12,000 more in the minimum. And that's something that needs to be addressed. So what I'm really working towards is ensuring that there is at least a 10% increase in these stipends. And that's a big question of how are you going to do that? And I'll tell you, these meetings are already happening. I have 2 people on my leadership team that are on the Provost Advisory Committee, and there has been conversations about this, about how we're going to increase them. And I'm proposing that they also continue to be increased by the rate of inflation. Inflation is going to only continue to grow in this country, and there is no reason why graduate students should be basically almost broke at the end of the day when there needs to be an increase in their stipends, 100%. The graduate students of this population, of this student body, contribute so much to what this university prides itself off of, and it's about time they get rewarded. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe stipends are the main priority, but something I want to make really clear is that I was the only candidate to meet with the workers' union and build a relationship throughout this campaign period. The only candidate to go into a room and talk about what are the needs and what is the real situation that we are facing on stipends. So we know that there is an increase coming up that is actually going to, in the long term, it's going to harm certain students with the metrics for performance that's going to be implemented in certain departments. We know how complicated that is, and I've taken the time to understand the specifics about what the administration is working on in terms of stipends. At the end of the day, it is harming its own students for advocating for a better life. Something that I do want to advocate for within the administration is for moving stipends into a state-based system. The same way that state employees get raises at the university every year, we need to build a sustainable system that works towards that. But something that is great is we can talk about that we care. Our actions should reflect that. I've had multiple meetings with the workers' union where they've told me about what their real situations are like. I was there last week for the rally where you hear real stories about people who are living on the maximum amount of stipend of food stamps with the minimum stipend the university is providing. We need to really engage in conversations with the people that are affected by these issues and not just base it off the number, but understanding how this affects everyday lives of our graduate students. Thank you.
When deciding which one initiative I was going to pick to speak to you all about today, I did think about stipends. I thought about increasing the minimum wage and making sure students have parking accessibility, housing. But something that I think is often overlooked in these presidential debates is the unique concerns addressing mental health amongst graduate students. You all have different life circumstances, different things you're facing on a day-to-day basis, and the university tries their best to address undergraduate needs, but I mean, there's very much a lack of support for graduate students, and I think that is so important when trying to promote academic professional success among graduate students. So first, I'd like to partner with mental health organizations on campus, not only CAPS, but also in our Chapel Hill cardboard community, like the Orange County health system. And focusing on increasing awareness of mental health challenges. Some of you all have jobs, families, so much going on in your life that the university seems to overlook sometimes. And secondly, advocating for increased funding and resources, especially the availability of graduate student specific counselors within CAPS to help you find tailored help. And then next, on my policy, I'm talking about creating mental health coalition and actually already working on doing that and making that external appointment that graduate students and undergraduate students can collaborate on. And then developing targeting programs and ensuring visibility and accessibility of these sources through partnership with the Secretary's office and the undergraduate student government and within all of exec.
Great, thank you all. That was everybody, right? Yes. Okay. We're now going to move on to our third question, and I think we'll come back around to start here. How do you plan to increase engagement with GPSG and graduate and professional students? For example, with university events that often don't include graduate students or joint governance issues that often leave GPSG in the dark until the last moment.
Yeah, thank you. Well, something that we have to change is how the Joint Governance Council is addressed. We need to start creating committees within the council so that we can actually build long-term goals on how we're going to be working with the graduate student body. Something that, caught my attention a lot is that these meetings are fairly unproductive. They're unproductive. They happen every here and then. People just get together without an agenda to talk about what both sides have been working on. But there's not really a relationship. And that is exactly where we need to start focusing on how can we build committees and task forces so that, for example, I want to build a transition team. I want to have a real transition team in my administration that is also able to connect with the other side. So like the positions that are reflective in the graduate student government, how can we build relationships within that 2-month period that both sides of student government are preparing to go into office? How can we build those relationships so that when we go into the next year, JGC can be a lot more productive? I think that all of you are familiar with the Graduate Student Experience Initiative. We want to work with them because they're already working on policy drafting and actually understanding it researchally based. How can we improve the life of graduate students? A graduate school is amazing at providing resources, and the student body president should be approaching those resources. Why is it not happening right now? That's what I continue to wonder. Like, why is it not happening? But I do want to fix that relationship and actually focusing on long-term collaboration and a relationship, not communication. Thank you.
My goal overall as next student body president is to bring humanity back to Carolina. Let's bring back the student-centered approach to engaging with policies that affect every single student on this campus. Overall, I want to increase stronger engagement, transparency, and advocacy to ensure the needs of every student is proactively addressed with equity. So that starts with bridging communication and governance collaboration. I'm talking about joint governance, having shared exec branch meetings, requiring undergrad and graduate Senate members to go to each other's Senate meetings. That's how you understand what's going on. And let's help address these issues together. Again, I'm repeating the word collaborative action. That's what it takes to actually make change on a large scale at this university. And then addressing the graduate student stipend disparities. When I was canvassing and talking about graduate students, I was actively asking them what they wish they saw in the next student body president. I mean, talking about Gilligan students, they have a $4,000 less stipend than the College of Arts and Sciences graduate students. And I want to set out a task force to find out why is this happening and help alleviate these disparities and bridge these payment gaps. And then lastly, expanding event inclusivity and promotion, enhancing transparency and proactive problem solving through the collective action and making sure that everybody is involved. Executive branch serves both undergraduates and graduate students. Let's make this a joint government.
Thank you. I first want to say that I feel confident when I say that I think this issue first needs to be addressed internally. I'm confident when I say that I think I'm the only one up here that has actually attended a graduate Senate meeting this year. And with that being said, I've been able to sit and listen and hear the concerns that graduates are proposing, that you all are proposing during your Senate meetings. With that, I think internally we need to build a greater connection here. That means, again, like Adolfo said, we need to create a much more fluent joint governance council, that there needs to be changes to that, and that will be made. But then looking externally, when I created the Law Society at Carolina, which is an organization that I founded, something that I really wanted to foster was a relationship between the graduate student government and the graduate side of law students. And something that I found was that a lot of undergraduates really enjoy mentorship from graduate students. So offering events where mentorship is available for graduate students and undergraduate students. That's so important. A part of this question was university-sponsored events. There needs to be more programming and more networking events that allow graduate students and undergraduate students to come together as one, because at the end of the day, we will grow as a unit rather than being separated by just a constituency. This is more than just an internal issue. This is an external issue that needs to be addressed, and I'm planning to address that. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. So that was I didn't miss anyone. Yes, okay. I'm really focused on the timer. That was the 3 prepared questions. And now we're going to move on to questions from the audience. So if you have not already used the QR code to add questions, let me get my computer over here. Okay, and then we're starting with in the middle here? Okay. And if any of y'all want me to repeat these questions, please, I'm happy to do that. All right. I got my timer. So this first question is, do you feel that I think this might be a typo. I'm going to do a different question. Sorry. Okay, this is the same idea. For the candidates who have had roles in student government in the past, what have you specifically done to advance the interests of graduate students? And we can tack on, if you have not had roles in student government, how in other ways have you advanced the interests of graduate students?
Yes, I'd like to start with my first introduction to student government, serving on SBACs, the Student Fee and Audit Committee. I was the only student representative on that committee of administrators and staff and faculty. It was, of course, difficult being the one student voice amongst all these adults, but I had the task of really allocating or taking into account where our tuition dollars were spent, where they're spent, and taking into account the cost of living here it's expensive. I mean, it's more expensive to live in Chapel Hill than to go to this university, and that's insane. Also working with financial aid. So when FAFSA changed that entire process, I was the one advocating for everybody influenced by that decision. And that's only step one in my process. And then I, of course, transitioned to the treasurer's office and the cabinet. And in every single aspect, I've been advocating for all students. I mean, I'm never going to single out just undergraduates or graduate students because you all are important, but graduate students specifically, not only do you all help serve our institution by being TAs and contributing your academic intelligence and your knowledge and your time, but you're also working for this university to help pay for your education. I think that this university can do a lot to help better support you. So you're not just draining yourself and running tired and being burnt out and feeling like this university has nothing else to give to you. And I, as the student body president, I hope that I can be an advocate for you all as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think first I want to start with my position last year as being the executive manager to former student body president Christopher Everett. In that role, I was able to attend frequent graduate senate meetings where I was able to then take those concerns and help him write what he was going to present to the Board of Trustees. I was sitting there with him while he was working with Lauren Hawkinson, who was the previous graduate and professional student body president. And through that experience, I was able to really gain a sense of understanding of what graduates truly want on this campus. Because like all three of us have mentioned, we're undergraduate students. So ensuring that we're able to really hear and see and understand what there is that you all want for your constituency is important. And then in my role now, I briefly mentioned earlier, I've set up meetings with Katie as well as Elaine to really hear graduate student experiences and what that's like. And in terms of collaboration, something that I'm really working on in my office right now is ensuring that the next secretary will have a joint newsletter that will be sent out to the undergraduate and graduate side. So that's an initiative that I am working on, and I'm so excited for that to actually happen. But outside of student government, I really, again, want to touch on the Law Society at Carolina. I know I already mentioned it, but I really think it's important that we as an organization that I founded have been able to invite graduate students into spaces where they might have not been able to be in previous. And so what that means is ensuring that graduate students are able to be in spaces like that. So yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't pull up my fingers. I apologize. Reading really intently. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. As I told you, I'm an outsider candidate, so I do not have a current title of student government, but that does not mean that I have not been working with the university to advocate for graduate students. And I'm going to go back to my work with the University Development Office. So I work with the Vice Chancellor for Development to raise funds for student scholarships and overall student support. And I actually got to work with the graduate school. I got to work with Ethan, great guy, working in the Department of Communications in the graduate school. And we built a program called How I Make It Happen to feature graduate students into a mass communication campaign with the university to promote real experiences of graduate students for scholarship support. When I was working with them, they told me you can pick 4 different departments or 4 different schools that you want to work with. I picked a graduate school because there's a clear disconnect between the undergraduate and the graduate body, and there has to be a lot more connection. Something I can tell you is, again, I met with the workers' union. I approached them and called and said, I want to listen what the problems are. And not only that, but I want to see what's like the best pathway for student government to address these issues. We built a relationship over time, and senators have helped build my policy, and I want to continue fostering this relationship. I do believe that our student government is not inclusive of graduate students, and we cannot continue to sugarcoat it and say, we are inclusive, we fight for you. That pin pad door in the executive branch is not open to graduate students. So how can we bring them into the table and actually work towards including them in the conversation? We want to build more connections, and I do think that I offer this different pathway for this community. So thank you.
All right, next question. What is your strategy for working with and/or standing in opposition to Board of Governors or Board of Trustees policies that impact the student body at Carolina and across the UNC system?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think this really goes back to the position that we're all sitting up here right now, and that's student body president, not Board of Governors president, not Board of Trustees president, you're the student body president, and so you're supposed to represent the voices of the students. And I think that each of us up here today that's exactly what we're wanting to do. And in terms of my strategy, I will ensure that I'm meeting with as many student organizations, graduates and undergraduates, as possible, as well as meeting with graduate student governments from different graduate schools. I think that's something that no one has mentioned yet up here. That's something that often gets overlooked, is that a lot of graduate schools have their own student government. So it's important for us to reach out as student body president, to reach out to these other schools and other student governments to really gain insight to what can we do to ensure that our voices, meaning everyone, every student on this campus, is really being heard by the Board of Governors, Board of Trustees, and ensuring that there is clear communication of what is wanted and what is needed from our constituencies. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that we have a very difficult administration to work with, period. And I think that the student body president should be a more progressive person. I think that, the word progressive sometimes gets misunderstood with radical, but you can still be progressive and be able to go into a room and be pro students. So for example, as we know, the university has a lot of funding struggles. Student organizations are unfunded. Our facilities could not be in worse situations. So how can we be pro students and oppose the spending ways that the university continues to have? I want to be able to go into that room, and before the Board of Trustees approves another skilled professor to be paid above market level, I want to talk about real student needs. I want to really be like, I am anti that because I am pro students. And that also will go back to graduate students. But I believe that the first step towards fixing this issue is to building and reconstructing the relationship between both sides of the student government. So like I said before, and I will continue to say it, I want to make sure that we bridge the gap between both groups. So when we're able to go in there, and I'm not only representing undergraduate students, but also the graduate student body, because the needs are very different. You guys have families. You guys sometimes have to live off this stipends that undergraduate students can get better financial aid, for example. We see that it's two very different populations within campus. And we cannot just say that we are trying to understand. So what in the main approach is, I don't want to click check marks. I don't want to be here because I have to be here. I want to be here because I want to be here and listen. So thank you.
Let me find it again. Sorry, I didn't wear my glasses today and that was a mistake. What is your strategy for working with and/or standing in opposition to the Board of Governors or Board of Trustees policies that impact the student body at Carolina and across the UNC system?
First and foremost, I'm no stranger to opposition. I've actually met with the chancellor's staff many times to advocate for the students and my discontent with how situations were being handled, especially last year, seeing how students were treated and protesting the war in Gaza. I think that's a very crucial issue that student body president should highlight, because how they would address that situation speaks a lot to their character and the content and their morals and values. In my office, we value proactivity. So I work in the Office of the Chief of Cabinet, the policy objectives again, and we wanted to issue a statement to students letting them know of the increased prevalence of law enforcement on campus and the barricades. And we were met with opposition when we decided to do that, just to help benefit the students. Met with opposition, some people in this very room struck that down. That hurt our students, that caused immense trauma. That was not working for our students, that was working against. And I helped try to work for our students, but effort and trying is not enough. I am no stranger. I've walked into the South Building many times, and I'm open to having conversations where they will actually listen to me, of course. But it all comes back down to making student-centered decision-making and putting students at the forefront. And I will not back down out of fear of this administration. I will step up for students because I'm a student too.
All right, being cognizant of time, I know y'all have another debate to get to, so I don't want to keep you here. Well, we've already hit our 30-minute mark. So I think we're going to do closing statements now, just so that we don't go too long. And who started the last one? Was Jacob started? So I think we're going back around to you get to start with closing statements. So we'll have 90 seconds for closing statements as well.
Just to wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about more personally about the why I'm running, give that mark. I'm a student organization leader on campus. I'm a low-income student. I'm an immigrant. I've seen the disconnect of the student body president and their office from the other side. I've seen not being reached out to by any of the staff that is working behind the scenes. I've seen how that hurts students and how every year we continue to see the same loop of people who want to run for the people, but at the end show that they want to run for their own interests, which every year continues to be disappointing. If there's a main takeaway that I want all of you to take with you is that I offer a different path for the future of student government. Sitting on the other side, I want to sit, listen, and work together. And by listening, I don't mean that just coming in because, again, I'm required to. I want to be able to meet with groups that you guys care about, like I've done with the Workers Union, who have been great people who have really helped me also educate myself on the topic about like graduate stipends, which is really important, and continue building relationships with the groups that continue to advocate. Because something I will say plain and clear, just because the administration doesn't like a group, that does not mean that you should not approach them. Even it gives you another reason to approach them. You should have even more reasons to work with them. Because again, we want to be pro students. You have to show, not by titles, but by heart, that you want to be pro students, that you want to approach the groups that need the more advocacy in our student body. So thank you so much for having me, everyone. It's been such a pleasure to talk to y'all.
Great. Okay. Next, Kaylee, I think you're closing statement.
Yes, so thank you all for your time again and listening to all of us speak. My values and what I've been an advocate for since I stepped foot on this campus is always advocating for the marginalized, for the people that are left behind and overlooked sometimes. And my journey to leadership here at Carolina has been non-linear. I've been a part in more organizations than I have fingers on my hand. Started out on committees in student government and worked my way through, but still working behind the scenes. And I've seen the same reoccurring issues over and over again. And so now I'm bringing these issues to the forefront, to the spotlight, so we can actually do something about it. And now that I've been in the inner workings of the university, I understand how change actually happens and prepared to do that on my day one of student body president candidacy. So I have many mentors that are in grad schools, from the law school to Gillings to the MPP program. And these are dear friends of mine who I see are not being supported by this university, and that's why I wanted to make a change. And I am running to be a change maker for you. I want to be an advocate for students, and I have been. And overall, let's just bring humanity back to Carolina. That's at my core, and I'm not doing this for my own agenda. Thankfully, I've been blessed and I have a job after graduation. I'm doing this because I want to leave a lasting impact on this home of mine, and I'm sad of seeing people being disadvantaged and going through stuff that is unavoidable harms, that if we had proper leadership, this would not be happening in the first place. Thank you.
Yeah, like each of us have said before, thank you so much for your time, especially during your Senate meeting. I know they tend to last long. So I just want to really emphasize the whole motto of why I'm running a Carolina we believe in, really built on the fact that Carolina is a great school, but there's a lot to get done. There's a lot more work to do. And I think that is something that we can all agree to. My 4 campaign values are diversity, accessibility, and belonging, ensuring that everyone on this campus feels like they belong here and they have a voice here on this campus. Community empowerment, that's so important, ensuring that everybody on this campus feels that they are empowered to use their voice, no matter who is in South Building, they are empowered to use their voice. Transparency, I'm not going to sit here and tell you things that I know is not going to be able to happen based on the experience that I've been able to have in these rooms with these administrators. That's just not something that I believe in, and I do not believe in false lies. As well as accessibility, ensuring that everything in terms of policy, in terms of reaching out to students is accessible, knowing that we are going to, if elected, take the initiative to reach out. It should not be your responsibility to reach out to us. It's our responsibility as student body presidents to reach out to you. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. And yes, thank you.
Okay, join me in thanking our candidates for joining us.
I just wanted to jump in, Mrs. Tucker, toxicology, for whoever's taking notes. I wanted to just ask if we could have one more question. It seems that in the room, there are a couple people who are looking forward to hearing the candidates' responses to a question concerning whether they'll support the Joint Governance Council in, for instance, trying to diminish what this body was looking to accomplish in passing no confidence resolutions. So I think that question, Katie, may be in there. So I was hoping maybe we could get a quick response from our
They
candidates.
have another debate that they have to get to. Do you all think that you have enough time to do 30
It would be really
seconds?
nice to hear at least one of our questions get answered. Thank you.
I read them directly off of the thing, guys. I don't know what you want me to say. I read directly off of what was sent in. Do you think we can do 30 seconds? Is that okay? Yeah, so the question, can I have the senator restate the question?
Yes. So Ms. Tucker, toxicology. Oh, where is it? Do you support the Joint Governance Council attempt to weaken our no confidence resolutions passage? Do you support the Joint Governance Council's attempt to weaken our no confidence resolutions that pass this body?
I guess that Kaylee, I think technically you would be the next in the order. I'll do I guess we'll do 30 seconds and I'll do a 20 seconds and then a 10 seconds.
Straight up, no. Like, an injustice to students is a justice to all. The university and administration is here to serve us. We pay them our hard-earned dollars to help serve us, and yet, where is this money going? There needs to be an audit. I think it's disgusting how the university has treated you all, simply put. And I'd love to talk more about this. Send me an email, send me a DM. Love to talk when we have more time. I'm not running to another debate. Thank you.
Yeah, all right, Jacob.
Yeah, to answer your question, no, I think my answer is clear. I believe that the vote of no confidence it was approached for a reason, and it was put up for a reason. Clearly, there is concerns that need to be heard, and I think that should be at the forefront. So to answer your question, again, no, I do not. Thank you for your question.
I do not support for it to be taken down. And I think that you have more than an argument to prove how evil the university is being responding to advocacy. You know, one of them, the perfect example is the performance metrics that are being implemented in response to advocacy for higher stipends. That is a system the university is building to punish people for advocating for a better future at Carolina. That just clearly proves where interests are falling. And I support the progressive approach that this Senate has taken to working with the administration.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. I did also want to share really quickly over here. I also put a QR code to each of the candidates' platforms as well available, and we're going to have a like an election information flyer that also includes all of these platforms that it's going to get sent out to all of you, so you can also send it to your constituents, but just so you have it for the moment. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Do you want to give, sorry, a quick shout out to Nisa and Avery? They are my graduate policy directors, so I'm just really, really happy to be here with you guys. Thank you for all your help.
And so thank you again for the speaking and debate in front of the graduate students. I wish you well on your next debate. We are going to work together, like Nick and I are going to work together to get that the notes for that sent out like as soon as possible, because I know, again, the voting is on the 11th. And also I will work to get this up on YouTube as literally as quick as possible. It does take a number of hours for the Zoom video to process to the cloud, and then a number of hours for my quite poor internet connection to upload it on the YouTube. So hopefully by tomorrow, but we're gonna try to get you and your constituents those materials as soon as possible. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Ken Pittman. And I have so many words to say about this wonderful man. But no one can introduce himself better than he can. So I'm going to let him make his way up here. And, but please do get more pizza. We have so much. So, thank you, sir.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. It's always a privilege to be here with all of you, and I'm always grateful for the opportunity to see all of you, and appreciate Katie and William. And is Sam in the room? I'm not sure. I see. Is she not here tonight? But Sam sits on our Campus Health Advisory Board and represents the GPSG. I, of course, because William asked me to, and I tend to try to do what William asks, I provided a PowerPoint presentation, but I don't really think the reason I'm here, it's really kind of a dog and pony show, with all due respect to dogs and ponies. So I'm not sure that that's going to be the best use of our time this evening. I have a feeling that I was invited to answer questions or to talk about things that you want to talk about. So the PowerPoint is here, and we can refer to it if it might prompt some questions. But really, Katie and William, I thought I might just open it up and see what kinds of things might be on your minds. Just for context, I'm the executive director of Campus Health. After this last conversation, I guess I should point out that my office is not in the South Building, but I'm in the Campus Health building, and I have senior responsibility for our medical practice, so Campus Health, as well as counseling and psychological services, known as CAPS. We are about a 100,000 visit, 75,000 prescription, about 180 staff members, about just under 100 of those are direct clinical providers. And we are one of only 9 college health centers in the country which are Joint Commission accredited, which means we go through a rigorous process to make sure that the quality of our services and the continuum of services that we provide are appropriate for the student body. We have provide a significant number of services both for undergraduates and graduate and professional students. Right now, we are part and sit as part of an active member of the Graduate Student Experience Initiative, and are working very closely with the dean and others to make sure that we're doing those things, at least in my working group, that can improve the health and well-being of graduate and professional students. So I'll stop there, and maybe we can talk about services, we can talk about access, we can talk about insurance, we can talk about lots of things. Yes.
Hey, Nissa Tucker, toxicology.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. It's exciting to speak with you on this format. So I think I have 2 questions. I'm going to just give you the first and let other people jump in. My
Sure.
first question is, particularly in light of the way that UNC seems to be enthusiastically, preemptively complying with the way that things are going in the federal sphere, how will UNC healthcare still provide reproductive care, gender affirming care? What was I going to say? Yeah, the affirming care that we want in a healthcare system.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that question. And obviously, it's one that's top of mind. Today is Tuesday, and I've already been in 3 meetings this week related specifically to executive orders and how those might impact what we're doing. For context, maybe I'll speak to 2 things. One, gender affirming care, and then the reproductive space. In the gender affirming care space, Campus Health currently provides gender affirming care to 75 students on campus. Many of those students are graduate and professional students. We provide hormone therapy for those students. We provide them with medical information as well as counseling as it relates to those that are going to be going through surgical transition. The executive order, some of you may or may not be aware of what the latest executive order said, because it seems like in the last week and a half they've come fast and furious. But the executive order related to gender affirming care, in general, I guess I should say, is that it prohibits organizations that receive federal dollars from providing gender affirming care for minors. And the executive order somewhat curiously defines a minor as anyone below 19 rather than 18. And so our policies have always been around, we do not provide that service for anyone that is under age 18. As you can imagine, we have a number of undergrads on the campus that are 16 and 17 years old, but we've restricted the care that we provide to 18 years. So we're pivoting around that. It only impacts one or two of our current patients. And so at this point, the plan is to continue to provide that service for those students, and to continue to have a commitment to providing that service, particularly for those students at this point that are in transition and are actively receiving medical treatment from us. So we don't anticipate any changes, and at this point, the Office of University Counsel agrees with that. In the reproductive health space, many of you are aware last year, might be familiar with the Hyde Amendment, and it has essentially created some similar kinds of restrictions related to the provision of abortion. We obviously, in our gynecology area specifically, have a number of students who come to us who either are pregnant or they test and we determine that they are pregnant, and then we're in a position, because we don't provide obstetrical care, we do provide resources and referrals to gynecological options for them. But the most important thing where the Hyde Amendment, to get to your question, has had an impact on us is in the university-sponsored insurance plans. So I need to distinguish between the system-wide student health insurance plan and university-specific plans like the graduate student plan that we provide to research assistants and teaching assistants. The way the system-wide insurance plan has dealt with this issue is that when students enroll in that plan, they determine whether or not they want abortion as a benefit or they don't want abortion as a benefit. So based upon their conscience and their philosophy and how they feel about that, they can opt in or they opt out of the abortion benefit, but it does not change the premium. So it's the same plan. They are just simply saying whether or not they want their insurance plan to include abortion or not. In the RATA plan, the university Chapel Hill specific plan that we developed for graduate students who are research assistants and teaching assistants, there was some concern about the fact that because the departments pay for that plan on behalf of their RAs and TAs, they use federal research dollars to pay the premiums. And so there was a sense from University Counsel that we could be in violation of having an insurance plan utilizing federal dollars to pay the premium and it having an abortion benefit. So this is one that I'm most proud of. I went to Blue Cross Blue Shield and I asked them to tell us what dollar amount of the premium is associated with the abortion benefit. And their actuaries took a look, because my thought was, well, perhaps we could find another funding source that didn't come from federal research dollars that could fund that specific benefit. And what they determined is that based on utilization, the abortion benefit, that portion of the premium was less than 1 cent. And they provided us a letter that basically indicated that that was all that was associated with the entire premium, and that has sufficed so that we could retain the abortion benefit in the RATA plan. And also, by the way, in the postdoc insurance plan that we provide. That was so long to a simple toxicology question. Okay.
And how has that translated with the switch from, because right, we've gone from Blue Cross. Isn't there in the works a switch from the healthcare provider?
No, we
Blue
actually,
Cross,
the state health plan, which covers state health employees, has moved, as many of you know, from Blue Cross Blue Shield to Aetna on January 1. But at this point, the system-wide student health insurance plan, the RATA plan, and the postdoc plan are still with Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, and there is no plans to change from Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, particularly because of the robust provider network that our students and postdocs have available to them. I'll mention, just because the question leads me to tell you that the system for the student health insurance plan, again, that's the plan that students can enroll in all 16 university campuses. Their plan is for the 2025-26 year. They're going to ask Blue Cross for a 1-year extension to that plan. And we will get that renewal. Our Campus Health Advisory Board among all 16 campuses as well get a chance to vet the benefit plan and the premiums associated with that. And then for 2026-27, the system plans to put that plan out for bid and to let other insurance carriers bid on that business. Quite frankly, that when we've done that before, there have not been many other insurance companies that have bid on the plan. It typically has been like an Aetna or a United, but Blue Cross always has a bid and typically have been the low bidder or at least the selected bidder based on the combination of premium and benefit plan. So we don't anticipate any change in the RATA plan or the postdoc plan for the coming year. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Ren, linguistics. I have a question about the dental insurance plan.
Yes.
I have heard many people very confused about this who have taken it to providers and been told this is a pediatric plan and we can't treat you here and all sorts of strange things. How should we use it? What should we expect to be able to use it for? Why does it tell us it's a pediatric plan?
Okay, very good. It's a great question. So let me. There's a number of things I think that are contributing to the confusion, and part of that is perhaps on us and Blue Cross Blue Shield. Some of you, this may be deja vu, but let me talk for a second about the system-wide student insurance plan. It does not have dental. There are no plans for it to have dental insurance. We are in a minority in Chapel Hill among UNC system schools that want dental insurance included in their plan. Quite frankly, about half of the schools in the UNC system, the thing that they are most interested in is the absolute lowest premium possible, regardless of the benefit plan. I mean, I'm just telling you that's the way it is. In Chapel Hill, our students have always been in a minority because it has been the robustness of the benefit plan that has been the most important to them. Certainly price is important, but I just wanted everybody to know the system-wide plan does not have dental insurance. We have heard from students, and particularly graduate and professional students, that they wanted access to a an affordable dental insurance, and they viewed that as something that they would like to have the departments pay for as a benefit, particularly for the research assistants and teaching assistants. One of the things we struggled with is in the dental insurance space, which is very different than medical insurance, is that if you offer a voluntary dental insurance, so for example, if we said RAs and TAs, we're going to go out to bid and we're going to develop a dental plan, then what typically happens is that only those individuals who likely are going to have dental needs, are you with me, purchase the dental insurance. What you need to do to keep it affordable is have everybody get the dental insurance. It's almost mandatory, so that then those who aren't using the dental insurance to a great extent are essentially paying for those who do, but the premium remains low, and that's the whole concept of insurance. Am I making that too simple? But that's how it works. So what we did is our medical insurance, the Affordable Care Act, I guess many people know it as Obamacare, but the Affordable Care Act required all insurance plans to include, to your point, finally, a pediatric dental benefit for individuals up to the age of 19. And the way that we were able to get dental insurance for RAs and TAs is that they removed that 19-year-old provision and provided through the medical plan dental insurance for everyone who had that plan regardless of age. So every RA and TA has dental insurance right now. The problem is that many dental practices, and this is kind of a lesson learned, are not used to filing a medical plan. They're used to filing a dental plan. Is everybody with me? But the way all of the RAs and TAs get dental insurance is through the medical plan. So you're covered, but there has to be education from dental practice to dental practice, and I think that's what has created the confusion. And there probably are ways that we can, the good news is that we got dental insurance for RAs and TAs and postdocs that we didn't think we were going to be able to have. The bad news is that there's confusion about how to utilize that, and having dental practices understand that it is covered within their filing of medical insurance. Now, if all of you know, a lot of dental practices, they're very different than medical practices. Dental practices, there's many that really do courtesy filing, meaning they're really not in network with many dental insurances. What they do is that they make you pay, and then they give you a walkout statement, and then they ask you to file the dental insurance. And that's just the way they operate. I'm sure the dental school senators are not happy with me saying that. That's just their approach. You have great teeth. You're probably in the dental school. Okay, good. But anyway, you've either used your insurance or you don't need it. So, but that's what's caused the confusion. But all RAs and TAs and all postdocs now have dental insurance this year for the first time in 2024-25. Maybe the takeaway that is that we need to do a better job of educating our RAs and TAs and they're about how to utilize that and what they need to be saying when they try to access that, utilize that insurance in a dental practice. Does that make sense? Maybe some talking points that would be helpful. Just for context, by the way, as of course, it changes on a back and forth because of RAs and TAs change. But I looked at some numbers. We now have, there's 3,100 RAs and TAs that are on the graduate student health insurance plan. And because it has dependent coverage, there are 75 dependents, either spouses or children that get their health insurance through the RATA plan. Yes. Did that help? Was that halfway? Okay, halfway.
Thank you. Joe Kerrigan, biomedical engineering.
Okay.
Similar vein. So dentistry and stuff like that, previously it was not covered. And I know dental students do individual bookings for dentistry and checkups that are at a discounted rate. Is there something similar for ophthalmologists, like eye doctors or anything like that? Or campus health? I know there's no campus health ones, but is there some type of discounted one or insurance that provides for it or something like that?
No, there's the state health plan has has a separate eye insurance. There's nothing at this point in any of the university-sponsored plans that provide specific, not only there's ophthalmology, but I mean optometry for glasses and contact lenses and eye exams, and I think that's those kinds of things. Yeah. We do have, we utilize the UNC Eye Center to a great extent, but we've never had a relationship where they offer discounts, if you will, to students or postdocs. But it's not a bad idea. We have referral coordinators that if ophthalmology services are needed, we help students make we make referrals to make sure that they're getting referrals to a place that's going to be in network with their insurance. So we provide that service. And all of the university-sponsored insurance plans have ophthalmology benefits and coverages, but we don't provide them directly or have a relationship for discounted services.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
I know there's a question online, but could you also tell people where they can get more information and how they can ask questions if they have them? Who they reach
Sure,
out to?
sure. You can go to campushealth.unc.edu, and on our website, we have a comments and suggestions box. And out of all those 180 staff members that I mentioned, I'm the one who looks at that box and then kind of distributes that out to those who can deal with certain issues. So if you have any additional questions, that might be a good place for you to send me a question, and I'll get a response back. All things insurance, we have an insurance coordinator that does nothing. Well, she does a lot. Listen, she would be like, what? Finish that sentence. Her entire job is devoted to assisting students in understanding their insurance, regardless of whether they have a university-sponsored plan or they've waived out using their parents' plan or a plan they bought. She works with them to navigate that. And then if for services that we don't have at Campus Health, we have referral coordinators both in CAPS and in Campus Health that help students navigate those outside referrals. By the way, I did want to mention, because this is gratuitous, but we also right now, as part of the Graduate Student Experience Initiative, are really looking at how we enhance and maybe perhaps improve the embedded counselor program that we currently have. We have now embedded either licensed clinical psychologists or social workers in 8 graduate and professional schools. And we're now have reached that point where there are schools and programs that maybe face some budget challenges related to the ability to provide or have their own embedded counselors. So we're looking at ways that we might be able to get creative and think about ways that we can serve a larger number of students. We recognize that for many graduate and professional students, the ability to get to CAPS, even though we have an open triage system, no appointment kind of access, which I think is kind of best practice on college campuses, that graduate and professional students often don't have the ability from 8 to 5 to be able to access therapy services, and our ability to be more creative in providing access in those services is something we're working on. Question online?
Yes, first of all, this is Kaylin from the Department of Health Behavior. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Being in the public health space, it's really great to hear about the work and the resources that you have available for students. So thank you for that. One of the questions that I had with some of the work that I do at the public health school, I've gotten to speak to a lot of Spanish-speaking students, and a lot of their inquiries are kind of related to wondering how they can get more access to Spanish resources, especially within CAPS. I know that there's a lot of students who don't want to vent to an English-speaking provider. They want to vent and talk to a Spanish-speaking provider. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on improving accessibility to those types of resources.
Thank you. That's a great question. We have, and is an area where I think that we can continue to do a better job. Currently within CAPS, we have 3 Spanish-speaking therapists that we are able to connect those students with, if that is their preference. However, those therapists may not always represent an identity that those students may be looking for. They may not represent a niche of mental health that they're looking for. We have language line services, which we're able to use translation that is dedicated to the provision of medical services in order to assist those students if that's appropriate. And then we have a wide range through our referral coordinators of Hispanic, Latino, and Latina therapists in the community that may be good options for those students as well. So we would really encourage those students to come, to go through the triage process, to indicate that it is a priority for them so that we're able to connect them with the right resource. Maybe another opportunity for us to communicate more specifically to that community. Thank
That's
you for
great.
that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Caitlin.
So yeah, this is a short one. So a couple years ago, I think.
Was that a pun? No. I'm
Oh,
kidding.
goodness.
I'm
Now,
just
well, now it
kidding.
is. No. So on this campus, there is a behavioral threat analysis team.
Can you say it again?
There's a behavioral threat analysis team.
Yes.
And so looking at their policy, that's about as long as my arm, it sounds like they're able to use CAPS referrals and other medical information in their surveillance of the students and people on this campus. I think, is that correct?
It is correct. And I'll tell
Can
you,
you, yeah.
I'll tell you maybe very briefly why, even though it was a yes, I promise I'll be quick. Some of you may find this interesting and some maybe not, but one of the health information for students at Carolina, it has been determined, and this is true for many colleges and universities, their university councils have made this determination. Your health record information is considered FERPA rather than HIPAA. It is considered as an educational record in addition to being a health record. Now, privacy things related to HIPAA and FERPA are very similar, but what FERPA allows is for information in the health record, while there is a very high threshold of privacy, we are able to use that information if it is determined that there is a health risk that would be indicated for someone, for themselves or for others. And so that's why that information can be shared with that behavioral health assessment team. That's as short an explanation as I can make.
You did great. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that helpful? I hope that got close to some of the things that my slides were outstanding though, but any of you that have gone to the graduate student orientation, they're pretty much the same slides. And for those of you who know, you were saved all of my jokes tonight. So, maybe the next time. All right. Thank you, William.
Oh. Thank you so much for coming. And you are always welcome to come talk to us. We enjoy the health information and the jokes as well. So. And these slides are not only a part of the slides that will be on Canvas, but I have them as a separate slide deck, and that will go into the email as well. And as there is so much information in there that is helpful for students. But now we are going to go ahead and go on to open forum, where I'm going to hand it off to Speaker Matthew Tweeden.
Great, thank you, William. Hi, all. For those who I haven't had the chance to meet before, my name is Matthew Tweeden. I serve currently as Speaker of the Undergraduate Senate. Prior to that role, I served 2 stints as Joint Governance Council Chair. And back in ye olden day, I tried to spend a little bit more time making it to most, if not all, of these grad Senate meetings. So it is good to be back in the room in Kerr. Thank you all so much for having me. I just wanted to check in with y'all real quick and share 3 quick things, sort of from the undergrad joint governance point of view, 2 of which are a big thank you to y'all. The first is that earlier this afternoon, we held the first meeting of the Student Safety and Security Committee in over 3 years. For those who are unaware, every semester you pay $1.15 into the Student Safety and Security Fund. And this has not been spent. We bought a bench 2 or 3 years ago before I was on it, but that fact notwithstanding, hasn't been spent in like the last 5 years. So we're sitting on about $350,000 of funding ready to be dispersed to institutional units, to student organizations, to any functional group within the university that has a spending priority for things relating to student safety and security. We restructured the system to be pegged to your as an ex officio capacity. So I'm there as Speaker of the Senate. My finance chair is there. The undergrad student wellness and safety director is there. Omar is there as your graduate Senate rep, and Elizabeth Seagroves is there from Graduate Exec representing the Director of Local Relations. So it's a great team. Very excited to see that opening up. We're going to be putting out applications pretty soon. If you have groups that you think would be interested in receiving funding, I'm happy to provide more information and help walk y'all through that process. But we want to get money moving. We want to be able to see this operationalized this term and put into action. So a huge thank you to everybody in the grad Senate side who was a part of that at the joint governance level and who is continuing to be a part of that at this point. Second piece I want to touch on, this is not nearly as long, but just to thank you for getting the elections reform package passed through the other week. For those who don't know, well, I guess obviously you just sat through a student body president election process. The Board of Elections is always inundated with a massive amount of work. So trying to create more unified, more cohesive scheduling for them really does a lot to alleviate a burden. And I look forward to continuing to work with y'all on the entirety of joint reform to help clean up operations for a lot of our other independent agencies and joint institutions. Finally, the last thing I want to share is that at our upcoming Senate meeting this Tuesday, I will be putting forward a resolution sponsored by myself on the topic of graduate representation at the trustee level. If you have specific things you would like to see in this resolution, please feel free to shoot me an email. But the key high points I'm going to emphasize in my language coming from the undergrad perspective is that we recognize under state law, we're not going to be able to add a voting seat to the Board of Trustees. I mean, that's a statutory issue. But we are really focused on making sure that graduate leadership gets sort of the soft power access to decision-making at the university level. And what I mean by that is for years, we've pitched this idea that the graduate president could sign the same non-disclosure agreement as the student body president to ensure that they are able to sit in closed session of Board of Trustees meeting to ensure that they are able to participate in like the trustees retreat and some of the very informal dinners. Because for better or for worse, that's where so much of the actual decision-making, handshaking, behind the scenes, making things move really happens. So the position the Graduate Senate will be coming at this from is one of like confronting the political reality that our hands are to an extent tied on a literal voting seat, but trying at every opportunity to maximize the presence of grad students in the decision-making and the information curves. If y'all have questions on any of the three of those, I'm happy to chat about them. Otherwise, y'all can reach me by email. Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Matthew. And again, if you don't know where our office is, like Matthew and I share an office. So if you can find me, you can find Matthew. If you don't know where either of us are, we are on the second floor of the student union, or I guess third floor of the student union, right above Alpine. And so please come visit. Please schedule meetings with Matthew, with myself. But please email Matthew about these issues, especially before the bill gets passed next week. We were going to have Neil speak next because he needed to go, but Neil needed to go. And so now his material will be spoken by me at the end of the evening. So we are going to go ahead and move into the introduction of legislation. We have a number of bills this evening, so we are going to get through this as quickly as possible. And we are going to start off with the appropriations bill for February 2025. And I will go ahead and pull this up. Samantha Beck, if you would like to talk, you are welcome to do so.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So this is again your standard appropriations bill for events from tomorrow through next Senate meeting, which I believe is also on the 4th. So we basically the entire month of February, we had a lot of event requests this month. I forget how many of them. Most of them were funded in full, but a few of them were funded partially, mainly due to our $15 food limit, $15 per person food limit, or some other limits that we have to uphold. And so of the total amount requested, we are recommending a disbursement of $5,871. That means if this gets passed, we would be awarding 18,000, a little under $19,000 with a remaining budget of 24,500.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this bill so far? Let me get my glasses so I can actually see people in the room. Senator Wren.
Question about the organizations that are funded here, because I see several organizations, I think 2 organizations had multiple events funded. Is that a normal thing? I believe it's the Policy Graduate Student Association and then the Economics Graduate Student Association. They had multiple events, all of which were funded in full.
Yep. So we have been allowing this mainly for the fact that not many organizations have been requesting money. Additionally, that all of these requests were very small amounts. I think the total for the policy was, I think economics and policy was like $1,100 and economics was $550. So in total, a very small amount of our budget. We did discuss this within the committee and have decided to push these forward as this is the first time that either of these groups have asked for money from GPSG. And specifically the economics group are starting a few new initiatives that they would like to start and wanted funding to start these initiatives in a potential effort to have their department fund them in the future. So stuff like that was something that we thought aligned with the funding priorities of Appropriations Committee.
I don't know if that, the microphone seems to be weird there, but she said thank you. Are there any other questions, either on Zoom or in person? Omar.
Just a really quick question, Sam. Do you happen to know what your remaining budget is?
Yes, it should be that $24,584. 17 cents seems a little iffy because we normally do the whole dollar, but that should be correct. Notwithstanding what has not been claimed and reimbursed yet, because obviously groups can budget $150 for pizza but only spend $120, and therefore we might get $30 back. As you and I have discussed, we're still working on fully realizing how much money is going out the door and how much GPSG is retaining from all of those awards.
Are there any other questions? Let me check on Zoom. I need more monitors. Seeing none, we're going to, can I get a motion to move to the next bill? Can I get a second? Perfect. We're going to go to 55-33. Thank you, Sam. And this is going to be for Nick.
Hello, all. Nick Melosi, Health Policy and Management. I am not Senator Fiandochiano, but I am representing him as the PPT, and I used to chair this committee. So we went through, there's a lot of good applications. We had 24 applications, of which 11 of them were funded. We funded for about $5,500, and the remainder budget, Will, if you could scroll up for a second, I think it was there, what the remainder budget was. So the remaining budget for the last 2 cycles is going to be $14,000. So that gives them a good amount to work with towards the end of the year. So like I said, we have 11 applications funded, want to say 3 or 4 of them were fully funded and the rest were partially funded at a large amount. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I have a question. Does this, it probably already says here, but does the $14,653, does that include, like what happens to the money that's not spent? Does that go back into that amount for the?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Fernando, I know them have been following up on people. So traditionally, the way it's worked is we've given them 2 weeks to submit in for funding once they've completed their travel. I know Fernando and I were both a little bit more lenient, you know, it wasn't 2 weeks exact. I wasn't cutting it down. But after a month or so, if they haven't submitted it in, we try to contact them, give them an opportunity to submit in. And if at that point in time they haven't done it, the money is then returned to the pot. So this is going to be the fun, Fernando, and the committee coming up, is that you're going to have to be a lot tighter to get more money in, because importantly, that money then can get awarded to people who are applying.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I can scroll down so you can see what was awarded eventually. I will change that. Hearing no questions, we're going to go ahead. Can I hear a motion to move to the next bill?
Moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you. We'll go once Zoom moves out of my way. We're going to go to 55-034, and I am going to hand it over to myself and talk about this bill. So, as you know, the Board of Elections situation this semester has been interesting from it, using other people's words, imploding in the fall, and members being impeached, and multiple things happening. The Board of Elections has gotten together, and we are going to have an election on the 11th, which is next week. And so that is great. However, in our code, it says we are going to host our election 14 days after the ratification period. In the BOE code, they changed the ratification period to 96 hours, which is 4 days. This means our election is 18 days after the general student body election, which is a Saturday. We already have problems with students coming to vote at all, and we had record low, or not even record low, we had record high, I think, voting. Either way, we had 3.6% of the graduate students vote last year in the spring general election with 411 total votes. Though I think that was actually for the GPSG presidential election. Is that correct, Katie? I will change that. And so what we're planning to do is we are going to make it so that BOE has the control to move the our election 7 days from when it is planned, so that when the university decides, hey, this is going to be a wellness day, or there's a holiday, or there's a snowstorm, or who knows what, they have the right to like adjust that to be the next and most viable day that an election can occur. Next, we are going to change it so it's 14 days after the actual election. This gives them a 14-day ratification period, basically. And so it'll be 2 Tuesdays after the spring election. Though that does not change this election. This year's election will be hosted for the GPSG presidential election, which, to explain how that works, if a graduate student is not elected student body president, we host a GPSG presidential election. Since that has never happened, since we've never had a graduate student win the student body president election, we basically hold one every year. And so that'll be held on March 6th. And the reason it's March 6th is because it has to be 30 days after we change our rules. This is so we don't change the rules last minute. So that is about 30 days from now. And this is also changed so that people can get all their pre-election material done in like a good amount of time. The spring senatorial election will be held on March 20th. That gives us time to get that all worked out. If you have a spring election time, I am going to be reaching out to you, or Nick's going to be reaching out to you, probably me, and we're going to help plan that, but that's not to do with this bill. Are there any questions? Omar.
To move it by 7 days. It has been shown that there are certain days of the week that are better for voter turnout than others. So specifically, for example, Mondays and Fridays are very bad for voter turnout. We can imagine why. So I'm wondering if you would be amenable to changing this to be something like, the first Tuesday after university holiday, wellness day, et cetera. That way, if you're specifying a specific day, it's always going to be on that day, and there's no kind of ambiguity, and we can try to have the most inclusive election day.
1 second. As I wrote this bill with a number of other people, let me talk with Katie for a second. Okay, wait, no, I'm like, legally, is that it?
Oh. I mean, I think so.
So, yeah, I'm amenable to that. I don't know the code as well as Katie does. Like, Katie's a genius, so she's my walking, talking code person. Sorry, Katie.
I don't think it's anything that I can think of that would be
Okay.
incorrect.
Also, Sabina, if you're here, if there's any violation, please speak up. But yeah, do you want to give me like language, or do you want me to just type out just next Tuesday?
If you want to say like the first Tuesday following, that's at least 14 days after the ratification period, that is not a wellness day, holiday, or, where the university is not closed.
Okay. Can you just, since I'm up here, can you go ahead and type that out for me? And that is a friendly amendment. And I'll just quickly go back over it before we vote. Just keep this thing going along. Are there any other questions, considering that that is going to be a part of the bill?
I had one. So Samantha Beck, pathology. What did this go through a committee? What was the vote? Like, what was it? Just doesn't say it on the bill. So I was just
My
wondering what
apologies.
that process was.
I grabbed the wrong copy from my email. My apologies. This did go through R&J and it did pass unanimously. Does that answer your question, Samantha?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I got a whole bunch of bills this last week and I grabbed the wrong copy. Any other questions? Considering that this will have the friendly amendment, are there any motions to move to the next bill? Do I hear a second? Cool. We're going to go to 55-035, resolution to increase the minimum stipend by NISA.
I'm going to just use the table mic. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Nissa Tucker, toxicology. I'm going to read what I wrote. I hope that you still hear it from my heart. I'm introducing the bill, increase the baseline stipend in order to address the dire state of minimum stipends in the face of rising costs of living in Chapel Hill. The minimum stipend at UNC Chapel Hill is $20,000, $600 added on this year. The MIT Living Wage Calculator estimates the cost of living in Orange County to be $51,000 for a single adult with no dependents. In the last year, housing costs alone have gone up 30%. The administration is aware of the disparity in pay. This university is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Many graduate students face financial hardship in making their inadequate pay meet their needs and rely on families, on partners to subsidize the cost of their graduate education with this inadequate pay. The administration has expressed disdain for this hardships, which I'm sure all of us in here have. Legislation is twofold. First, to demonstrate our concordance in recommending an increase to the minimum stipend. And second, this legislation is intended to underwrite the need for the budget and development by the administration of UNC Chapel Hill to centrally fund the increase to the minimum stipend. This means that the funds to support their workers must come from the university rather than shifting the burden of appropriate pay to schools, deans, departments, et cetera, via the unfunded mandate that's being passed around now. So please join me in echoing the UE 150's UNC Workers Union and their demand for a $40,000 stipend, and my fellow senators in passing this call for the university to respect us, our fellows, and the work that we accomplish to make this university run. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this?
Emma Wren, linguistics. Does this bill, so I see it says raising the minimum graduate stipend. I'd like to clarify that the stipend that seems to be in question is the PhD stipend, not the master's stipend, which is, I believe, about $2,000 lower per semester. And many master's students don't even make that. Is this a call to raise all graduate stipends or solely to raise the PhD stipend?
And I think it's appropriate to consider master's stipends also, but here I'm coming out of my experience as a PhD student. Yep. I don't know how those are tied in with each other. If you or someone else has ideas about the numbers, I mean, I think that it should be $25 an hour here in 2025. So whatever that cranks out to, I'd be in support of.
Be just to acknowledge that master's students should be paid the minimum for master's students. It feels rather silly to argue for master's student stipend raises when the master's student stipend is kind of treated as a silly number in the first place. So I don't know, maybe I'd like to propose a friendly amendment that all students should make at least the minimum stipend, which.
Yeah. Sorry, is that you said is it a motion to say pay the stipend what they're required? Yeah, I think the university should follow the contractual obligations. Absolutely.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could do a friendly amendment.
What is your friendly amendment? Like which section? So I can scroll to it so the room can see, and then Nissa will let you know if it's friendly or not.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I would like to what page is this? On the third page where it says therefore, instead of doing an immediate $10,000 increase, I think that we should make that higher and that we should do an immediate $20,000 increase. That would put us at parity with Duke graduate students who do the exact same jobs as us and they live basically in the same place. So yeah, to cross out the 10,000 and make it 20,000.
And is this considered friendly, unfriendly, or?
Yeah, the senator from sociology, Senator Gwynn, is actually the co-author on this, so it would be friendly.
Cool. I will make that 20,000. Are there any other questions, friendly amendments, or other? Katie.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's let Katie go first, and then you can go online.
I just had a formatting question. The therefore statement where it says we resolve, should the resolving statement go after the part that says resolved by? Because right now it's like a whereas clause. So I'm not proposing, I can't propose anything. I'm just mentioning that like you're not like, since it's in a whereas clause section, it's not part of the resolution. So you may need to be moved into the lower section.
What is there at the bottom? I think I wrote this a month or two ago. think since we're not, I'll find it on my. Okay, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So the therefore, should it be, Katie, is a suggestion to copy it, to duplicate it down there, or what was?
I can't actually make suggestions. It's more just a comment.
What
but
what was your comments again?
just that if you move that, if you took off the word therefore and you put the we resolve like down in like section 1 or section 2, and you, like if it's in a section, it's part of the resolving statement. If it's in the above where it says resolved by the Graduate Professionals Senate, it's part of the whereas clauses, which is like the background. So if that's
okay.
part of like the thing you're asserting, it would
Yeah.
be more powerful in those sections.
I like that comment. Let's copy and paste that into section 1. That'd be excellent. Thank you.
Copy or cut?
Okay, Oyedika Chi, DK, Public Health Leadership and Practice. So I'm a master's student, and I wanted to just have given my own context to this. A TA also, and the stipend for master's students is a little bit short of $1,600 monthly, which when you're done paying your rent and all the other utilities, it's just like you're left with barely nothing. So I want to ask that before we pass this, we should have a very good representation of the master's students here. And then if we need to have more information, I can volunteer to join this committee to have a better representation of the master's arm, because I believe that's that should be well considered while moving this motion. Thank you.
I'll respond to that. Thank you for your comments. There's the camera. Yes, I think the ask was to maybe be considering this for master's students. Was this maybe in a future piece of legislation?
This current one, well, for us to amend this one to include the master student.
Do you happen to have your suggested numbers on hand, or would this take a minute?
Well, I'm just like going through this now, and though I saw it before, but I didn't. I don't have currently, but I can work on something and maybe connect with you after outside the meeting, and for us to do that.
Elaine, Vice President for Advocacy, this is always so loud. Could you just specify in the first section now that the graduate student increase includes both PhD and master students? So, master students are currently at 15, so they would receive the 20,000 bump also. So maybe just even explicitly stating that could solve that issue.
I think so. I think it would. Thank you.
So it would say we resolve that an immediate $20,000 increase to the minimum graduate or master and PhD student stipend instead of, so it replace graduate with master and PhD, or was there?
Maybe a parenthetical after graduate, master's and PhD.
Do a parenthetical. Don't worry, I will fix spelling, punctuation, all that later. Are there any other friendly amendments, questions, comments, concerns?
Hi, Brittany Alcera from Biochemistry and Biophysics. I have more so of a, I guess, question, in which has there been evidence of PhD and master students getting equal pay for stipends? I haven't seen it other than like on a fellowship, but even then, it's typically smaller. Was like less than the PhD students at a university. But I was just curious, since we are trying to put this into motion, and I know the university has already been talking about this whole stipend increases or just annual increases in general. How effective of pushing both master's and PhD student stipends at the same time, and if it will benefit us or hurt us trying to do both of them at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question. So I kind of heard two things in there. First, is this to say that master's and PhD stipends would be equal? Not quite. I think that there's already a few thousand less in the master's. This isn't where I've been doing a lot of looking at the numbers. The second part of your question that I think I'm hearing is, do those need to be lumped in? I think that that it makes sense to advocate for an increase across the board. I don't think that other people should be paid less than a living wage, period. So I don't know necessarily the direction of that question, but that's my response. Thank you.
No, that answered my questions. Thank you.
Ellen Reisenberg, bioinformatics and computational biology. I know like a lot of master's students aren't paid at all, which obviously I don't support, but are we updating this to say that just the master's students that are paid have an increase to their minimum stipend, or that like all master's students should be paid the minimum graduate stipend for master's students, which I just don't think it's clear yet.
Yeah. So at least as written, it would just be the stipend number would increase. Paid, unpaid positions. I feel like there's another sort of quandary to the unpaid master's positions, but I wonder if that's a different problem to tackle or outside the scope of the current moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Katie?
I don't know how to do this because this isn't a formal process, but I'd like to, I guess ask the author, I guess the way to do this, if I can add my name as a signatory on the legislation. We have a day where we're going to the state legislature in about a month to do some advocacy work. And I think bringing this to the state legislature would be very beneficial. So I'd like to add, if I can add my name as a signatory on the legislation.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Were you gonna? I was jumped in there. We are positively towards that. Unless Jacob, you had a other thought, adding yourself or being added here would seem appropriate.
I think you would want it to say a separate line that's signatory and then a name.
I will do that later, so you don't have to watch me fail to spell things. Hey, there's a reason I'm in the graduate school that I'm in. I just read things, not write them. Are there any questions, Nick? Is there a second on that? Are there any objections to that? Any on Zoom? Hearing none, we are going to go to the next piece of legislation. Okay, this is 55-036, Protect Undocumented Students Resolution by Avery Baker. Who would like to speak on this resolution? You have the floor.
Is this working? Okay. Dear Senators, my name is Avery Baker, and I'm a senator representing the Public Policy Department. Although the circumstances that warrant this resolution bring me great sorrow, I'm happy to use my platform to speak on the issue of protecting undocumented students. In the past 2 weeks, the Trump administration has made abundantly clear their intent to deport tens of millions of people. Here are some examples of what they have done or attempted to do in the past 2 weeks alone. First, Trump issued an executive order attempting to unconstitutionally revoke birthright citizenship, a fundamental constitutional right for descendants of immigrants in the United States. Second, The Department of Homeland Security rescinded the directive that had established existing protections for sensitive areas under the Biden administration, allowing U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, referred to as ICE, officers to raid schools, hospitals, workplaces, places of worship, and more. On January 29th, Trump said he would order the Pentagon and Department of Homeland Security to build a detention center for up to 30,000 deported migrants in Guantanamo Bay, a site that has historically accommodated no more than 780 prisoners at one time. As of today, the White House has started flying immigrants out to Guantanamo Bay. These are just a few examples of the horrific and inhumane policies this administration is trying to implement. On January 24th, Chancellor Lee Roberts was asked by a UNC faculty member how the university was planning to respond to the directive allowing ICE to raid schools, to which he replied that the university is going to, quote, follow the law. The same professor then asked Roberts what faculty should say if asked by ICE to identify undocumented students, to which Roberts replied, quote, we're going to comply with any requests from law enforcement about that or anything else. Roberts' vague and ominous words instilled a sense of fear and uncertainty in many students, faculty, and community members. In a Daily Tar Heel article published on January 31st, students called Roberts' declaration disappointing and scary. Additionally, last Thursday, January 30th, the American Civil Liberties Union of North Carolina issued a statement denouncing Lee Roberts' expression of intent to comply with ICE if they sought to deport students, asserting that allowing ICE to access student records would, quote, create an environment of fear and distrust. UNC administration and faculty providing identifying information about students and their immigration statuses to ICE would be an unlawful violation of the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, also known as FERPA. Also, the Supreme Court case ruling Plyler versus Doe asserts that undocumented students have the right to a public education in the United States. Aside from the dubious legal implications of Trump's policies, they are devoid of morality and fail to recognize that America is a nation of immigrants that exists on stolen land. These policies disproportionately target students of color, including Native Americans and Hispanic and Latin Americans. Even if someone is not undocumented and has no undocumented loved ones, they can still be affected by this issue because of the racial profiling tactics used by ICE agents. UNC administration's inaction in speaking out on this issue is disappointing, to say the least. Therefore, I and my fellow sponsors are calling for the university to put the well-being and constitutional rights of undocumented students first by issuing a non-compliance policy with ICE. Any legally binding request would be exempt from this per Section 2. I welcome any request to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go with Senator Reisenberg.
Ellen Reisenberg, Bioinformatics and Computational Biology. Since this passed through SOGAPS, the ACLU delivered a letter to UNC condemning Robert's statements indicating that the university would cooperate with ICE. And this letter cites several of the things that you just mentioned and that are mentioned in the resolution, FERPA, 14th Amendment, and Title IX. So I have a whereas clause written up. Would it be a friendly amendment to add that to the resolution?
Yes, Senator, it would.
Senator on Zoom, please make sure that you are muted until you have a question. If you would like to send that to me via Slack, I will go ahead and put that on the resolution so that we can see on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions, Senator King? And then we can get to people on Zoom.
Benjamin King, Public Administration. I'm just wondering if it would be okay if I could be added as a co-sponsor.
Absolutely.
Hi, Catherine McCormick, Political Science. I'd also like to be added.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to need a list once we're done. Thank you. Who's next? Go for it.
List, do I have to say it out loud or can I just tell?
You can say it out loud so that we can all hear it.
Okay, I would like to add my name to the list, Omar Morebi, Bioinformatics, Computational Biology.
President Heath.
Also, can I also be added, I guess as a signatory, I can't be a co-sponsor, but as a signatory on this one as well?
Yes.
Can I also be added? My Jacob Ginn, Sociology.
Yes.
Can I also be added?
Can you say your name and your unit, please?
Onyedi Kachi Adike, Public Health, Leadership and Practice.
Can I also be added? Lauren Babinet's Geography and Environment.
Me as well, please. Kaylin Bennington, Department of Health Behavior.
Javier Limon,
Can I
Public
also be
Administration.
added? Me, Alcera, Department of Biochemistry and Biophysics.
Okay, and then we're gonna have somebody in person.
Yep, Javier Limon, Public Administration would also love to be added. Javier Limon, Public Administration.
And then Michelle Preston, Environmental Science and Engineering, would also like to be added. Department of Environmental Sciences and Engineering. And then Lorcan Neal, I'm apologizing if I'm butchering your name, Journalism and Media. Tyler West, Epidemiology.
Sorry. Family Health. Madison Parker.
Journalism and Media is, oh gosh. Lorcan Neal, Lorcannneil. And then
From Romance Studies, I'd like to be added.
And then I'm just going to give a couple of seconds so that we can make sure all this is. So you got Ellen Atterbury as well. Cool. Is anybody else on Zoom in person? We also had Matthew Wong, Physician's Assistant. And did you get Tyler West, Epidemiology? Michelle Preston, and then Sloan Markowitz for the postdoc. Meg McKenzie, Department of Art. And then did we already have the School of Medicine, Senator Rebecca, last name Melaku? Yeah, Melaku.
If people just emailed as opposed to us.
Probably. Are there anybody else? You can also just email Ellen Reisenberg to get your name. Sorry, you're in. Seeing none, are there any other questions, comments, concerns?
Emma ran linguistics. I would also like to be added. I can email you my name, but you all just said I have to do it on the floor, so.
We're doing this by the book, people. All right, are there any other questions, comments, concerns? If your name has not been added and you want it, can you email or Slack Ellen Reisenberg? Or say it out loud, because we're here now. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing that it was a friendly amendment, I'm just going to let Ellen send that to me. I'm going to do it in the background. And if we want to go ahead and move on to the next bill, we can come back and look at this and BOE if there's questions about what the friendly amendments look like at the end.
I think there may be others in the chat, just a heads up on Zoom that maybe are indicating their interest, but that can feed into it later.
Okay. And you're not on Zoom, Ellen, are you? You can't see. Yeah, you won't be able to see the chat. Yeah, Nissa, could you tell Ellen. Perfect. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Do we have a motion to? Seeing that there's a second, are there any objections? Hearing none, we'll go on to move to the next bill. There was another one on Zoom that just got populated. I'm glad to see that everybody's like really approved of this bill. Okay, we are going to move to 55-037, amending summer governance and fall senator's term by Omar. Before I do that, Ellen, is there a question? Yeah. Nissa, are you able to take care of that or?
Sorry, I wasn't seeing it online. My bad.
Okay. It was the Public Health Leadership and Practice Senator. ONYED. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Omar, you can take it away.
My name is Omar Marabi from Bioinformatics and Computational Biology. So this bill seeks to kind of fix a pretty gaping hole in the GPSG code. So as it stands, there's a few problems. If you are a fall elected senator, if you were a senator that was elected in the fall, your term is actually shorter than all spring elected senators. Spring elected senators' terms go from April to April, whereas fall senators go from September to April. This has a few implications. Number one, technically speaking, anyone who was elected in the fall is ineligible to serve on summer governance. I know for a fact that there were fall elected senators who served on summer governance last year. So while there might be a precedent, it's technically not correct. Also, if an emergency meeting would get called after the April session, any of the senators that were elected in the fall would be ineligible to vote and be in that meeting. So this is actually a pretty serious issue, considering that most units have their elections in the fall, and that means most units would not be represented during the summer term. So this aims to, number one, fix that and amend fall senators' terms so that they go for a full year from September to September. And it also adds a financial incentive to serve on summer governance. Right now, I was told that it's very hard to get people to serve on summer governance. And one of the main ways I think to get people to do that is to give them a financial incentive. And the other thing is that it also amends the code so that we have sitting chairs of all of the committees over the summer. The reason for that is there are a lot of external committees, such as the undergraduate speaker today spoke about this, the Student Safety and Security Council, which now currently has this graduate chair of finance on it. If the chair were to, I'm going to be here over the summer, and if this gets passed, so I will continue being the chair over the summer. But in the situation where there is no chair, this bill also provides a mechanism to elect, to make sure that there's a sitting chair of all of the committees over the summer. Yeah, I'll take any questions.
Ellen Reisenberg, Bioinformatics and Computational Biology. I noticed that all the committees except for SOGAPs are represented over the summer. Do you want to just add SOGAPs? Seems like it makes sense.
Yeah, I want to clarify that that was not something that I wrote in. That was how the code was before. But yes, I would be more than happy to add SOGAPs to the list of committees that are represented over the summer. My only question is, would this cause a conflict because it says that committees need to have 5 sitting members? Do you know, Katie or William?
Yeah. I think that since committees are meant to have 5 seats, I mean, it's meant to have 5 seats. So I'd have, let me think about
Can you
it.
change it to 6? Like, where does it say 5 seats?
Can I have a second to look it up really
Yeah.
quick to see what I can find?
One of the reasons it's been 5 in the past, and then we'll go to Nick, is we've just had trouble getting people to do. So 5 was the absolute minimum that we could get away with and actually get enough things done. And also it means that one person can be chair, one person can be the summer president pro temp, and then enough, like 4 other individuals. And so that a number of people, like if something comes up, vacation, something, that we still can get enough things done. Nick.
Yeah, hi, Nick Malosi, Health Policy Management. I guess I would suggest, and Ellen, this might solve part of your problem as well. Could you refer it back to the 1 senator as opposed to the chair? And I think it goes along with the issue that William was speaking about, that there is a challenge of giving people, you could maybe put something in there that, maybe preference to the chair, but as opposed to directly making it to the chair, as opposed to allowing senators from those committees. And I think even in the past, we've had trouble fulfilling the seats. We've had to open it up to the regular Senate. So I think that would solve part of your problem, Ellen, in the sense that this way then SOGAPs would have an opportunity on it. Not only that, but then all summer governance nominees anyways have to be voted in. So I think that solves a lot of the problems, but I don't think it should just be the chairs.
Yeah, so actually, I believe the way that I wrote this was that it essentially defaults to the chair, and if the chair can't, then someone else from that committee gets voted in. But would you, I mean, if you have specific language you would like to change that to, I would be open to hearing it.
Comment. So it used to be that the chair of summer governance was the travel awards committee chair, became the chair, and we changed that, so it's no longer. So just as a note, this actually also doesn't include the travel awards committee, and seems like it should, based off of, because we consider travel awards in the summer. That was one thing, still looking up to the previous question, but I just had that thought.
Yeah, so actually, the reason why it doesn't include that is because this elsewhere in the code, it says travel awards chairs the summer governance. This just dictates the committee members.
I wonder if it's not in this updated version.
When that got changed, says the 2024 September code that is published is missing a number of bills from last semester.
I think that got changed. It might have, I'll go back and check, but we changed that to make it so travel awards did not have to necessarily become the chair on that. So, because I've done summer governance for the last 3 or 4 years, and the reason why we always have travel awards involved is because a large chunk of summer governance job is dealing with the travel awards that come in. And so you generally always want somebody from travel awards there to kind of shepherd people through the process of grading it. I'm sure the members of the travel award committee can tell you all how fun that is. But that did change. So travel awards is now, according to this provision, no longer on it, which I think it would be an important thing to consider, having travel awards on it.
Yeah, I mean, if we could, so apparently the version of the code that I'm working off of is not the most up-to-date version. If I would be happy to change that, where it's GPSG code 1.102-1 to whatever it currently is, and just change the one senator to the chair.
One other thought on this is that another part of the code in the summer governance section also, this has always been a little confusing. There's also a president pro temp over the summer. And so you could slot SOGAPs into that 6th person if you really wanted all the committees to be represented, just as an idea. That could be potentially a way to do it. But still trying to find the answer to the 5-person question, sorry.
You want to be pro temp, Ellen?
I mean, I don't think this would be me this summer anyway, but I just think that SOGAPS has been fielding some important work this year and last year, and advocating for graduate students is still important over the summer. So I don't know if it's possible. I think it would just make sense for them to be on there. I mean, yeah. it doesn't seem like it should be a big deal to just like have 6 people, but you know, if there's some rule, then
Okay, I think at this point, I would like to amend it so that the chair of SOGAPS, has preference towards the president pro tempore, and then we can add Senate travel awards to this list to ensure that everyone's getting represented.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I am trying to find in last year's Senate meeting minutes. Amaran, go for it. Thank you, Elaine.
Current version of the code that is on the GPSG website, 2024B.
That is the most up-to-date version and complete that does not have massive formatting errors.
That version on page 83 says that the travel awards chair is the chair of the summer governance.
So R&J is currently looking and having code edits done. And so they have a version of the code that OAs in the office have put together and like worked on and maybe added all of last year's bills. However, it's not solid enough and needs to be like formally updated through R&J before I can put it on the, would be comfortable putting it on the website.
Is it possible for senators to have access to the most up-to-date code? Because we can't write accurate bills if the code we have is obsolete.
It is currently located in the R&J SharePoint, which is everybody should have access to. So if you want to go into the R&J SharePoint and look into January Senate meeting notes, there should be a code that says, a version of the code in there. I can't promise its correctness as we haven't gone through as R&J, which I'm ex officio on, to say this is correct or this doesn't have massive formatting errors.
Clarify, when we write bills, we should ignore the code that is on the GPSG website. It is obsolete. We should go to the code in the SharePoint and use that as the basis for legislation, correct?
You should probably look at both at this point. You should consider the code in R&J to be possibly more up to date. It is so confusing, and I'm so sorry. I didn't discover that the last year's bills weren't in there, or most of last year's bills weren't in there until earlier this month. I knew one bill wasn't in there, but then so far we've been figuring more and more and more of the bills just didn't make it into September's version of the code, and so we're working on it.
I'd also like to point out that there's also 2 versions of the GPSG code on the website. There is the 2022 version that's listed along with like the student constitution and the undergraduate student government code and the rest of those as well.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, Brian Lackman, advisor. I feel weird saying that part of it. Just as a clarification, that was supposed to have happened over the summertime under William's predecessor before he stepped down from the role. So just to be clear.
So it is being worked on. And so I'm sorry I didn't push that out. I didn't know exactly how much, and still don't know how much of the code, since it's such a big document, what has not been updated.
Okay, well, what would anyone like to tell me what the current R&J version of this says? Because I doubt, I mean, I don't think we've passed any bills on this, so I personally would say with pretty high confidence that whatever that version says for these sections is probably accurate. Unless someone who is from R&J wants to correct me.
Let me try to find it on the R&J. Should be in January. Legislative branch, January.
On the GPSG SharePoint, if you go into the RNJ 2024 to 25 session, academic year 2024 to 2025, agendas and minutes, January, there is a document GPSG code clean with comments.
Sure. Do we want to table this? Is there not permanently table, but table this to possibly the end of the meeting, or come? Is there the Robert's rules on this is kind of iffy, but does do we want to postpone?
Can I postpone? Can I motion to postpone this till it's reconciled?
So say like the end of the meeting.
Yeah, perfect.
Are there any objections to that from the writers of the bill? Okay, we are going to look at that from as much as we can, and we're going to come back to it. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Cool. Apologies, everyone. Okay, I'm glad you have the microphone. So we're going to go to 55-038 on act to clarify the power to draft and sponsor bills.
Okay. I do want to apologize for how much you guys are going to be hearing me talk. So this act aims to clarify the power to draft and sponsor legislation. Generally speaking, it is senators and legislators that should have the power to draft and sponsor legislation. In our specific Senate, we've pretty much allowed anyone who wants to draft legislation to do it, but also to introduce it into this body of the Senate. That is not typical for student governments. It's also not typical for the US Senate. Typically, even if someone else writes the legislation, it has to have a senator sponsor it. That's basically just to say, you know, if you want to introduce your bill into a Senate, you have to get at least one member of that Senate to be willing to put their name on it and back it up before their colleagues, you know, which kind of makes a lot of logical sense in terms of why we want to do this. And we can see that, you know, and I will say this is not meant to be antagonistic towards anyone. This is just meant to protect the legislative authority and independence of this branch of government. The Senate is not, you know, under the power of either the executive or the judiciary. It is its own branch of our government. So it is not meant to act as an approval machine for anyone else's agenda. And really how the Senate should work is that if someone from outside the Senate wants to work on legislation, wants to introduce legislation, they should be finding a senator to do that with, who's willing to, again, put their name on it and then defend that legislation before their colleagues. I have sources from the Congressional Research Service that talks about how, you know, the US Senate deals with sponsorship. I would be happy to share that or read it out to you guys. But this is, I mean, the power to sponsor is typically, you know, exclusive to senators. And so this bill, and I also would like to mention that we had discussions with the Solicitor General on this. Initially, they actually ruled that only senators could draft and sponsor legislation, and then they actually retracted that on a technicality, although the Solicitor General themselves also advised against allowing external parties to introduce legislation into the Senate. So this is coming from, you know, standards from the US Senate, from other student governments, our own Solicitor General advising against it. And yeah, so this just kind of clarifies the separation of powers and independence of this body.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns that people would like to raise on this bill? President Heath.
I just have a question. I also know that the code references like author and sponsor and signatory, but doesn't define those. We don't have to bother with it with this bill, but I think in the future, I'm wondering if it would also be beneficial just to define those, because I'm also thinking of a situation where like someone in one of your constituencies wants to sponsor, wants to write a bill, and how they can do that, and kind of like what the definitions of the words, putting them in the bill, the code might be less confusing for people. So that wasn't really a question. I guess that was more of a comment, but yeah.
Yeah. If we also default to the Congressional Research Service and Library of Congress, the way that would actually work is it would still be authored and sponsored by a senator. It would actually just say, if I were to write it, it would be by Omar Marebi and then by request. So effectively, you're saying someone requested that I write this bill on their behalf. And you can add them, you can add their name in the whereas clauses or et cetera. But that's actually the custom of how you would do this.
Benjamin King, Public Administration. I'd like to move the previous question.
So there's been a motion to move to the previous question and a second. Are there any objections to this? Any objections online? Seeing none, we are going to move to the previous question and move to the next bill. This, in fact, you still have the microphone. This is 55-039, an act to establish an ad hoc committee to recommend a new code of permanent laws of the student government. And I also have the document you sent me.
Yeah. Should I do that first or should I talk about the bill first? Okay, well, before we get into this, I'm going to move to make a friendly amendment to my own bill, which, if any of you have read this bill, this just amends the section about the committee having to keep its draft of our code, which I will explain private. We're not allowed to do that because we're a public organization, so that just gets rid of that provision. But anyways, so this act is to establish an ad hoc committee to recommend a new code of permanent laws for the student government. So what this does is it creates a temporary committee that lasts for 1 year or longer if it's renewed to essentially rewrite the joint code. We recently passed a new student constitution. It's rendered our current joint code pretty much meaningless. And we have to redefine a lot. The undergraduate Senate has actually already passed an entirely newly updated joint code and has asked the Joint Governance Council to vote on that code. The consensus amongst the graduate senators of the Joint Governance Council is that we are not willing to vote on anything that has not passed, especially something as drastic as amending the entire joint code that hasn't actually passed through this body at all. We want all senators to have a say in that. And so this is meant to establish a committee whose entire purpose is to research the question of what the new student constitution defines, what needs to go into the joint code, and what graduate senators would like to see in there. It also provides a mechanism so that if we, as the Senate, want to instruct that committee next year to include certain elements or sections in that new code, we can do that. And it also has certain restrictions on who can and cannot serve on this committee just to avoid conflicts of interest. So you can't both be on the Joint Governance Council and serve on this committee, for example. And yeah, I think that summarizes this bill quite well, unless I'm missing.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, concerns that anybody would like to raise? President Heath.
Just have one point of information about this, is that next year will also be the future of the GPSG committee. So there will be 7 committees now right? No, wait, 8. There will now be 8, right? Yeah, 8 committees. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
And to that point, later after we do this, we're going to have to fill 2 more committees as we didn't do it last time, and there was a new vacancy. Just so you're aware, we're struggling to fill committees at the moment. Any questions, comments? Does anybody need me to scroll to see changes? Senator King.
I'd like to move the previous question.
And there's been a motion to move to the previous question. Is there a second? There's been a second. Are there any objections? Nothing online. We are going to move to the previous question. I can go back over the BOE bill. It has not changed very much. Sorry, I take that back. It has changed to so that the first portion has been removed, and it will just say if a graduate or professional student has not been elected as student body president, election to elect the GPSG president shall happen on first Tuesday that is not a holiday or well-being day at least 14 days after the spring general election. This cycle is defined in this title. That was the friendly amendment. Unless there are immediate questions, since we've already said we're going to finish this, I'm going to go to the next one. There was no updates on minimum stipends. There was an amendment to the last whereas clause, and it looks like this. Yes, the letter, I'll add the hyperlink once I'm not in front of people. Yep. Is this amendment friendly? Cool. And I will add the signatories as well. Again, if you have any more, please just contact Ellen and I will just add you on after this is voted. We are coming back to the question of the summer governance. Emma.
I have reviewed the code 24.b as it stands on the GPSG website and the 24.b clean copy as it stands in the R&J folder on the SharePoint. The section on the travel awards, well, not the travel awards, I'm sorry, the summer governance section, title 10, I believe, is identical in both codes. So if there were things that got passed, they didn't make it into either version of the code. The code as it is being amended in this bill is the code as it stands everywhere I can find documentation.
Okay, for me on that, since I wasn't the one that was supposed to add that, also I have not got a chance, due to I am taking up Brian's suggestion of literally pestering the OAs to do as much work as I can get them to do as possible. I didn't get those changes reviewed as of yet, so will need to do that. There was a hand somewhere around here.
Despite the memory of myself and also Senator Pelosi, we cannot seem to find it. So it's fine. Just pretend that it's right. I'm pretty sure that I don't think it's gonna, just in like my knowledge of the code, even if there was like a little bit of a discrepancy, it would be really, really easy to fix. So I think I not giving my opinion, but I don't think that there is anything you're gonna run into that is gonna be a huge problem either way.
Okay, and so there was an amendment to this bill that was stated to give preference to SOGAPs to have the chair to nominate the president pro temp on the summer governance. Do you have the exact language that you would like me to type out? That was the language that was specified. Is there a change do you want to change that or do you want? Okay. I will spell it out later. Is that a friendly amendment to the code? That because of the 5-person limit and there's and 5 people here excluding travel awards, yeah, There, there isn't? Okay, cool. Worst case scenario, we can amend this next session. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns on this bill that someone would like to raise at this time? Seeing none, is the result of that conference over there going to change this bill? I'm going to assume not. So we're going to go into move into voting on this bill. I'm going to get that up and working, and then we're going to have amendments so we can get y'all out of here literally as soon as possible. Can anybody report if the voting is open or not? I'm currently going through Duo. Take that as a no. Okay. Yeah, it was labeled inactive. I just clicked activate. My bad on that one. It does say active on my end. Can anybody refresh their page? Awesome. Okay, we are going to let y'all do that, and we're going to speed through announcements. Oh, gosh. President Heath, you're up first.
Cool. Okay, I know we're really tired, so I'm not going to take too long. I think I say that every time, and I don't know that that always happens. All right, so I think I just want to start by saying that obviously we are in a time right now where we are grappling with a lot of uncertainty. And I think that all of us are sort of feeling the effects of the new administration on our work and our personal lives and all over. And it's kind of hard right now to feel like you're supposed to just go do your research or like go be a normal person or go to the grocery store when it sort of feels like everything is bananas and it's a lot to take in. And so I just want to say that that is okay and normal for all of us. And that I think that nobody has all of the answers right now. And so we're kind of we're kind of working as quickly as we can and trying to just figure things out as we go. And so I do want to just say I really appreciate the leadership that has come out of the group. Even just today, I think there was some bomb-ass legislation. So I'm really excited to see that. I have some updates. My first update is that I just don't have some super satisfying updates, I think, on terms of talking about some of these university policy decisions and changes that have been happening in the last week. I have been in meetings. I have been really ignored by some people who are not meeting with me, unfortunately. And I'm working on that, and I'm doing my best. So I wanted to give you some tangible updates on things that I can tell you for sure that we're doing right now. One is that I've had a couple of meetings and we have decided that we're going to put out a couple of sets of resource handouts. And they're going to be on a couple of different topics that are related. They're university policy and related to university policy, but also just like general rights of students. And the thought is that they're supposed to be kind of short and easy to digest so that people can get the information they need and they don't need to like read 50 pages. So these are some of the topics that we're going to try to have this done pretty much as soon as I can get it done, and put those out so that you can send them to your constituents. I am, especially on some of the ones that are more related to like understanding university policy, I'm going to talk to some of for example, like the Dean of Students office to see if they can also explain it in a way to make sure, because my biggest thing is I want to make sure we're telling students the correct thing. I don't want them to come to us and we tell them something wrong. So this is in the works. This is going to be happening soon. And I'm hopeful that it can be helpful. This is a question, and I'll leave kind of the asking of the question maybe until the end, just so I can get through everything. But I am personally struggling a little bit right now with figuring out the best way to communicate with you all, in terms of things that are, normally like, we can wait a little bit, like, things aren't quite so day to day. But I am struggling with the best way to communicate with you all as these things happen and are changing like really rapidly. And so maybe we can talk about this or come up to it. We can talk about it afterwards too, maybe just to save the Senate's time. But I do want to ask the question of, I don't know that everyone uses Slack. I can't just send like a mass university email every single time I have like, a paragraph of things to talk about. And so I'm really struggling to figure that out. And I would love the Senate to tell me how they want to hear from me and from my administration. So we can talk about that. So keep that in the back of your head. So I have a couple other updates. So ASG is the Association of Student Governments. It is a group that has every single student government from every single school in the UNC system within it. It meets monthly. We had that meeting last week and there were some big things that happened. 2 bills passed. One is called the Graduate Student Trustee Representation Act that was sponsored by UNC Chapel Hill. And that came from a partnership with NC State as well. They also have a lot of graduate students. And the act is basically calling for every single UNC system to have graduate student representation on every single board of trustees. Additionally, there is an act that was passed called the Graduate Student Representation Act, which you can read them at this link, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's basically asserting the importance of graduate students to ASG and the fact that the graduate students and their needs are like an important part of ASG and is something they're going to continue to work for, and also asking that delegations bring graduate students to the meetings, because right now there's like 4 and there's 17 schools. So obviously that's not enough. So I wanted to keep you all up to date on what's happening there. They're also, they are working on some system-wide set of resources. There have been some changes at the Board of Governors level in terms of some of the policies at the university. I don't have them in front of you because I don't fully understand exactly what the changes are, because I just found out about this over the weekend. But specifically on policy about protests. And so I'm trying to get all of that information for you all, but they're also going to send out and advertise some information, and I'll make sure that you all have access to that as well. There's a lot of things happening at the system level, and this is new and not normal, which like in a good way. We're getting stuff done here. So can you go to the next slide for me? I also just wanted to briefly, that date, that's supposed to say more. I'll fix that in a second. I also wanted to briefly just touch on the election timeline stuff that that y'all voted on at this meeting. I've got a couple of questions. The Board of Elections is in charge of all of this. And so it's a little unclear who is in charge of advertising. And so what that means is we're just going to make sure it gets advertised. And so these are the dates for the GPSG presidential election. And I wanted to make sure you all had them. We're working on, I have our OAs are making like a fancy, nice thing that you can send everyone, but I just wanted to make sure it's not done yet. So I wanted to make sure you had the the dates here. If you have any questions about the GPSG presidential process or, questions about the position, just text me. I'm so happy to talk about it with anyone who's interested in. I had floated the idea of doing sort of like a, what would you call it? Like a meeting, like a event where I kind of talk about it, but I haven't really heard from anyone that's actually interested. So I don't know if I don't really want to just like hang out for an hour and a half in my office if no one's going to show up. So if anyone is interested in that type of thing, I'm super happy to do it. So just let me know. But there was one of the questions too was, when is the debate happening for the GPSG presidential election? That's going to be at the next Senate meeting, because in theory that 2 days later would be the election. That says February. I meant to put March. That was a typo. I'll fix it. Can you one more slide for me? Last thing, there's a couple of events going on. You'll hear about them in emails and stuff in the announcements. But the big one is the Spring Wellness Festival is happening next week. It's a pretty big event that we do with the graduate school. There are a bunch of openings for free massages for graduate students. And they're still open. So go sign up for them because I think we all deserve a massage right now. And just remember, this is a pretty big deal. We spent a lot of time working with the graduate school to make this happen. So there's gonna be a lot of wellness resources and stuff available there, and dogs, I believe, to pet. So it's going to be a good time. It's in the Union from 11 to 1 on February 11th. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is the Pretty Huge Dance Planning Committee, I guess, is being formed. The plan is to have that in March, like early March, I think. So if you're interested in working on that, please email our Director of Advocacy, Adjoa. That's the email to email if you are interested. We need at least like 2 more people would be really helpful to put that whole thing together, because that is sort of the one big social event that we do a year. So that's it. That's all I got. I guess, are there any questions or maybe comments to my previous question? Cool. We can talk about it after the meeting. Thanks.
All right, is the proxy for the senior or the student body president here to speak? Perfect.
President Taylor texted me letting me know that the proxy had to leave earlier, so.
Okay. I will do my best to go through the slides. Sure. Passing it on to Katie.
She just told me about it. Okay, let's see what she has on her slides. I haven't seen these before. Oh yeah, okay. The undergraduates are government, the executive, I forget how to call it. It's late. They've created a meal donation, a swipe donation plan where if you have extra meal swipes, you can donate them to students who are food insecure. Everyone's very excited about it, and I believe it's going to be starting next year, which is exciting. Can you change it? So that's going on. If you want more information, feel free to talk to Julia's office about that, but it's going to be pretty cool. I don't know about this. They're doing advocacy on interfaith rooms, and the proposal has been pitched to the provost, and now they're going to pitch it to the deans of college. I didn't know about this. Pretty cool. Okay, continue.
And the resolution will be passed in the undergrad next week.
Cool. I also just found out about this. So apparently the undergraduate or the student body president office is wanting to create a task force that's just sort of an informal group of leaders getting together to talk about the federal executive orders that are going on, and to see if we can talk about how that's going to affect university policy and get some better communication. So I haven't heard about when that's happening yet, but apparently it's going to be soon. Have you heard about it?
I have also not heard about it, but I was also at ASG this weekend, and Julia and I were talking about this, and she would like, as like many senators, exec members, like whoever like wants to be, because this is for the good of the student body, and so like she would love to have, and really like love to have graduate representation on this committee, and like we highly encourage that. please reach out to Julia. Like there is as of Saturday, there is no current meeting times, no nothing until they know who wants to be a part of this committee, and then it'll be formed from there. So if you want to be a part of that from the ground up, please contact Julia. The email is student body president.
Cool. Okay, that's her cabinet updates. We could read them in the slides, I think, right?
Yep, it'll be in the slides.
Yeah.
Katie already talked
I
about
just
that.
talked about this. This is the ASG stuff. So Western North Carolina, the bake sale, support bake sale that they're going to be doing. So cool. Oh, this is interesting. So this is they're doing a financial literacy symposium. I've been told that they are going to have some graduate students, at least I've been told they're going to have some graduate student specific programming at this symposium. It's a free symposium specifically around financial well-being and literacy that's going to be happening in March. I think there's going to be more advertising for it, but it's the second time they've done it, and it's a partnership with the director of financial wellness that is within the dean of students office, and he's been really awesome for working with graduate students. So I'm excited to see more of that partnership. I believe this is being done by, I want to say, their vice president's office.
That's it. And then we're going to go to updates from exec. Elaine, take it off.
Hi, y'all. I'll make it some quick hits because I'm exhausted personally. So for the advisory committee meetings, I see Kieran in here, so thank you, Kieran, for serving on those. Some quick updates. We presented about stipends to faculty council and faculty executive council. They have overwhelmingly supported that, hopefully to no surprise to anyone in here. Carolina Legal Services is a great stop for graduate students if you would like to update your wills and powers of attorney, especially for queer folks in the room or people that don't have a quote unquote like regular partner. So if your legal definition of husband or wife may change with legislation, that would be something to consider. Stipends, we will see a stipend increase, unclear on the numbers. Provost is signaling we should know that by end of February. It will be an increase over 3 years, just so research funds can catch up. So people on grants, it's much more difficult to fund that. Again, from NISA today, we heard the call for more central funding rather than just doing it out of cutting positions. Nick Malosi followed up with the provost about the chancellor's questions from a few Senate meetings ago. So that is back on the provost radar. I've not seen a response yet, but I'm sure he will read the email and we will keep pressing him about those questions that y'all sent in. FERPA privacy flags, especially in response to student information. You can do this with an appointment through the register, but it would make it to where a directory request would not be able to release your information. So I think all students should do this, but especially undocumented students. That way nobody can figure out who you are. I think, according to Student Affairs, you have to have an appointment. Someone also told me you can do that through Connect Carolina. I'm not sure.
We can share, I have a graphic on it. We can share it.
Perfect. We will share that resource with y'all very soon. Chapel Hill transit and parking issues. I know the last snow day, Chapel Hill declared, UNC did not. So there was a disconnect for a lot of commuters, which is mostly grad students. That was brought up to the chancellor's advisory meeting. Well taken. He knows parking is an issue. He didn't really have a response as to why UNC was not on a delay there. The provost is working with us on a wellness day policy. So we will shop that in that advisory committee meeting. He's very excited about it. He actually brought it to us, not the other way around. There was an attack on a Muslim student. The attacker was not a UNC student, so they were removed for trespassing, but I believe ended up on Franklin later that same day. Admin has only communicated with those groups in particular. I doubt they will send a university-wide message, but they are supporting those groups. Amy Johnson, Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, has talked with the president of the Muslim Student Organization or Association. I don't remember the name of that one, but they are actively working on that. International students should have received communication from ISS. Again, these are just kind of passing along notes. There was a death in the Spencer Residence Hall. This came through probably about an hour. This meeting's been long. At some point in this meeting, or shortly before. So if you have students, if you're a teacher, just be aware that they may be going through that. I'm not sure what residence hall that is, but it is Spencer. And then state and federal advocacy days, we are coordinating with Duke and NC State. NC Central just doesn't have a graduate professional student government, so that's why they're not in that, but we have asked them to share any concerns they have. But always happy to share meeting minutes, but similar to Katie's sentiment, I know that we've not done our due diligence in getting stuff out to you all. If that's a Slack message, more than happy to send that as things come through.
Are there any other executive members here or on Zoom? No. Also, if you, I will get to this in my updates, but still only one vote per Senate, per RU. So political science, I'm sorry, you only get one vote instead of two votes. But if there's no, I know from Beck's chief of staff, she will have the monthly reports out soon. It wasn't able to happen today, but if you would like to read those sometime this week. Cabinet members. I'm going to go back to chairs in a second. Neil asked me to share this, and I have a blurb from him, which I will say, and it is asking, like this is occurring tomorrow. So if you can just quickly shout it out to your folks. The financial wellness like program has been going amazingly well this semester. So you can scan the QR code, take a picture of this page up on screen. We would love to have as many attendees as possible. I've heard from people that have gone that it's been very useful. I will just include the blurb in my email, and which I will try my best to get out tonight. Next. Chairs. Are there any updates from chairs? Molly is not able to be here, chair of R&J. Is there somebody else from R&J that would like to speak? Or I can give the updates at the end for that. Seeing none. So Gaps, you want to go?
I don't really have many updates. Just hold your town hall if you didn't in the fall. The deadline is February 28th. So if you're going to do one, you should get started on planning that and requesting funding soon. And also, SOGAPS is going to meet in early March to talk about like how to improve the town hall process for next year. So if you have any ideas or want to participate in any capacity, just email me and I'll invite you to that.
And I will bounce off that. Like your participation points and number of that and amount of money has been sent to the relevant office, QSO, is that, I believe. And so they have that document. And so all you need to do is request that money from them if you've done your town hall. And so if you, I will be sending out in this email, which I tried to get out earlier, but I needed to check a couple of things before I send it out, like how to spend your money. And I will also, if you don't know how much money you have, because you probably don't, because I haven't told you, I'll send out that document to, I was going to try to do it one by one and send like about 90 something emails. That didn't work. So I'm just going to send the entire block email and everybody's going to see what participation gets you. So more participation, more money. Next committee meeting. Next, Ben.
Being chair of oversight and accountability, nothing crazy to report. We've just been going through directors and vice presidents, receiving updates from them. haven't gotten any shout out, Katie. No reports of anything bad going on in the exec branch. If there is, shoot me a message on Slack, but nothing really to report.
Awesome. Do we want to do next? Omar, sorry. Peripheral, not happening today.
Yeah, Chair of Finance. Not many updates either, just echoing SOGAPs. Have your town hall. Your deadline to do it is the 28th. Your deadline to apply for funding is also the 28th, but the closer to that deadline you apply, the more you're entering into reimbursement territory, which means that you might not be able to get a CUSO appointment and you're going to have to put up your own money to do your town hall and then get reimbursed. So if you don't want to do that, make sure you apply soonish. I will emphasize you do have the option of hosting your town hall without any funding from GPSG, although I wouldn't recommend that for, your constituents' turnout. The other thing is finance is currently going to start deliberations on next year's budget. If you have any thoughts, concerns, opinions on any of that, please, feel free to contact me. We can set up a meeting. You can tell me you can message those thoughts to me, or we can talk one-on-one. I'm happy to hear all of your ideas.
Awesome, thank you. Travel awards with Nick.
Unless John, you want to update on travel awards. There isn't, Fernando had some personal stuff, so I helped step in. Committee was great. We met, we actually have a open seat in travel awards. So if anyone wants to join travel awards, I would recommend it. Otherwise, I don't think there's any big updates regarding travel awards. So any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I want to go home.
Which chair did I miss? I always miss one.
It's me, appropriations. Very similarly, we are just starting to get transition documents and everything ready for next year.
Awesome, thank you. And we as exec are working on those too. And I encourage the chairs, please work on that as well. Like just put in relevant things that someone in your position would want to know next semester. I'm gonna just do this as a quick, does anybody want to be in travel awards or oversight accountability? Please, we really need y'all. Which one would you like to be in?
Travel awards?
Awesome. Are there any, does anybody else want to make this a vote or see none? Talk to Nick afterwards. Senator King.
I just want to note that there are 2 openings on oversight and accountability.
Oh, my bad.
So sign up.
Are there 2 senators that would like to be on oversight and accountability? Going once, twice?
We're keeping everybody in the room until we fill it.
Pardon? Oh, sorry. I will let Senator King just start cold emailing people if he really wants to. Sorry, that's not going to happen according to the, Senator King. So we're going to do this in March. I am just going to put my updates in the email because I don't want to hold y'all here any longer. Meetings is my life. Next Senate meeting is going to be in here on March 4th. Same time, same place. We're going to have another debate. I don't have a speaker lined up, so hopefully it'll be a shorter meeting unless I find someone in the next month. Are there any other updates or anything that anybody wants to say before I?
So I thought, was Beth Meyer Davis coming in April?
April. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I'm pretty sure it's April. Mine's Swiss cheese right now. Any other updates from people? Otherwise, do I hear a call for adjournment? We can stay here. Is there a second? Okay.
Sorry,
Oh.
real quick question. I know we just adjourned, but do we have a update on votes? Did the bills pass?
Yep. Sorry, my bad. Everything passed. Everything passed with like 80s and 90%. So, and there's go forth. Have a good evening. Get out of here. Take pizza. awesome meeting y'all. I'm sorry to keep y'all so late. At least we didn't hit 9 o'clock.